I should have trusted my instincts when I saw that all his photos were of exotic places. Machu Picchu, Santorini, Bali, always alone, never with friends, never with family, just him in every picture, smiling at the camera, green eyes sparkling. But it was Friday night. I was bored, and I had been swiping on Tinder for an hour without finding anything interesting, until he appeared. Name, Hawthorne Vale, 32 years old. His bio said, looking for real adventures, tired of superficial conversations, give me depth or give me distance. Witty, different, not the typical, I like the gym and beer. I swiped right, instant match. His first message came seconds later. Finally, someone who seems to have something between their ears besides air. I laughed. Bold message. It could have been offensive, but somehow it worked. Is that your standard opening line? I wrote back. No. I usually ask about your zodiac sign, and then pretend it means something. Another message. But with you, I don't know. You seem real, like you actually live instead of just existing. His name was Briar Ashford, 29 years old, freelance graphic designer in Seattle, single for 6 months after a 3-year relationship that had ended badly. Not dramatically, it just fizzled out, like most things in my life lately. We chatted for an hour, then 2. The conversation flowed naturally. He was funny, smart, well-traveled. He asked questions about my work, my passions, my dreams. What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? He asked. I drove from Seattle to San Francisco alone. No plan, no reservations. I just drove. When? 2 years ago. I needed to clear my head. Did it work? For a while. Sounds like you need another adventure. Probably. How about tomorrow night? I know a bar, small, downtown. They have the best old-fashioned in town. We could venture into some real face-to-face conversation. I should have said it was too soon. I should have waited, got to know him better first. But something about his writing, that mix of confidence and vulnerability, intrigued me. Okay. Which bar? The Copper Bell, Pike Street, 7 o'clock? I'll be there. I spent Saturday nervously getting ready. What to wear, too casual, too dressy. I finally decided on black jeans, a blue blouse, heels, not too high, enough to feel confident, but still be able to run if necessary. Run if necessary. Strange thought. Why would I think about running? I arrived at the Copper Bell at 7 o'clock. He was already there, standing outside, just like his photos, but better. Dark hair, perfectly tousled, button-down shirt with rolled-up sleeves. Those green eyes even more striking in person. Briar, he smiled, not just with his mouth, his whole eyes. You're exactly like your photos. That's refreshing. Were you expecting something different? I always expect something different. I usually get it. He opened the door for me. After you. The bar was perfect. Dim lights, soft jazz music. Not too crowded, but not empty. We found a booth in the corner. We ordered drinks. He was right. His old-fashioned was excellent. We shared loaded fries. We talked about everything. Work, travel, families, dreams. What was your favorite place? I asked, pointing to his phone where he had shown more travel photos. Iceland, he said without hesitation. The Highlands. So remote you can walk for days without seeing another human. Just you and nature. Sounds lonely. Sounds perfect. His eyes locked with mine. Most people fear solitude, but I embrace it. In solitude you find truth. No distractions, no pretensions, just essence. The way he said essence made my skin tingle slightly, but his smile returned. Warm, inviting. But tonight, he continued, I appreciate company. Yours specifically. 2 hours passed like minutes. He was charming, attentive. The conversation never stalled. It never felt forced. Around 9, he asked for the check. I have an idea, he said. My loft is only 2 blocks away. I just got an espresso machine. It makes better coffee than any Starbucks. Want to continue there? A knot tightened in my stomach. Rule number 1 of dating: don't go to their place on the first date, especially not someone you met online. I should probably... Just coffee, she interrupted. I promise. I'm not that kind of guy. I enjoy talking to you. And this place closes soon. I thought we could continue. But if you're not comfortable, I totally understand. I can call you an Uber. Her tone was perfect. Understanding. No pressure. She almost made me feel silly for hesitating. Uber sounds good, I said. But maybe we'll just walk. 2 blocks, you said? 2 blocks, I'll show you the way. We left the bar. The night air was cool. Seattle in October. Perfect for walking. We started down Pike Street. Bright lights, people around, normal. Then he turned into a side alley. Shortcut, he explained. Saves a minute. The alley was darker, narrower, fewer people. Are you sure this is the way? My voice sounded higher than I intended. I've lived here 2 years. Trust me. But something in his tone had changed. Flatter, less warm. And then I noticed his hands, shaking, slightly. Not from nerves. Something else. Anticipation. Excitement. Hawthorne, I think we should... He pushed me, hard, against the brick wall of the alley. The air was knocked out of my lungs. Sharp pain in my back where I hit it. His face was inches from mine now. Those completely different green eyes. Empty. Predatory. You're perfect, he whispered. His breath stale. Not like at the bar. As if something had changed. Rotten. For my collection. What? I could barely form the word. Pure terror flooding me. 3 this week, he continued, his voice monotone, as if reciting a fact. Azalea, Monday, we met on Bumble. Beautiful. Trusting. She followed me to my loft. She didn't leave. Oh God, no. Clover, Wednesday, Hinge. A little more cautious. She insisted on walking the main road, but eventually they all come in eventually. His hand went into his pocket. He pulled something out. A cable, thin, black, with wooden handles on each end. And saffron. Yesterday. Tinder like you. Fought harder. Very unpleasant. I had to be creative. The cable. He was holding a club, a strangulation tool. My collection is growing, he said. In the basement. 3 so far this week. 4 counting you. Personal best. Cold sweat running down my back. My pulse pounding in my ears. Why? The question came out as a sob. Why? He considered. Because I can. Because dating apps are a buffet. Lonely women looking for connection, so easy to lure. So easy to collect. He lifted the cable, wrapping it around his fingers, testing the tension. This is the same one I used on Azalea and Clover. Works perfectly. Fast if you don't fight. Slow if you do. Personally, I prefer it when they fight. Makes it more memorable. Terror paralyzed me. Every muscle frozen. Every thought screaming, but my body unresponsive. Don't do this, I whispered. Please. They all say that. He moved closer, the cord rising. But I do it anyway, because I need to, because every new addition to my collection makes me feel complete. The cable touched my neck, cold as ice, rough against my skin. Just breathe, he whispered. Don't fight. It'll be easier. The cable tightened, barely, but enough to feel the threat. The promise of what was to come. My scream caught in my throat. No sound came out, only pure terror. His eyes, those damn green eyes I had found so captivating, stared at me without emotion, as if looking at an object, not a person. The cord tightened further, cutting off my breath, my vision beginning to darken at the edges. Not like this. It couldn't end like this. My hand found something. In my bag that was still hanging from my shoulder. My phone. No. Too late to call. My keys. With the self-defense keychain my sister had given me. Sharp point. For breaking windows or eyes. I grabbed it. I swung it, upward, connecting with his face. He screamed, letting go of the cable, hands going to his eye where the tip had connected. Bitch! I ran, down the alley, toward the main street, toward lights, toward people. My heels slipping on wet asphalt, almost falling, but staying on my feet. Behind me, his laughter, guttural, deep, enjoying it. "Run!" he shouted. "But you can't escape. I know these streets. I'll find you." I reached Pike Street, people everywhere, but no one was looking. No one noticed. Just another woman running, maybe missing the bus, maybe late for something. I kept running, anywhere, away from him, a porch, random house, light on inside. I ran up the steps. I banged on the door frantically. "Help! Please! There's a man. He attacked me. I need—" The door opened. An older woman, maybe 60, in a bathrobe and confusion. "What? Please call the police. A man tried to kill me. Hawthorne Vale, from Tinder. He has bodies in his basement. Azalea and Clover and Saffron." My voice breaking. Sob after sob, barely coherent. She pulled me inside, closed the door, locked it, called 911. "I need the police. There's a young woman. She says she was attacked." I collapsed to the floor, shaking, my hands going to my neck where the cord had been. Red, marked, but alive. The police arrived in minutes. 2 officers. They took my statement. Every word a struggle to get out. I gave them everything. His name, his Tinder profile, description, the alley, the cable, the other victims he had mentioned. He said his loft was 2 blocks away, I told them, from the Copper Bell, on Pike. He said he had 3 bodies, in the basement, Azalea, Clover, Saffron, this week, and another, throat slit, in his bathtub, blood on his shoes. I saw it. Dark stains. The officers exchanged glances. "Miss, are you sure about the names?" That's what he said. Azalea, Monday, Clover, Wednesday, Saffron yesterday. One of them, badge said Officer Granite Cross, spoke into his radio. "Check reports of missing women. Names Azalea, Clover, Saffron, this week." Silence, then crackling response. Affirmative. 3 reports. Azalea Thorne, 27, reported missing Monday. Last seen leaving for a date. Clover Hale, 29, Wednesday. Same situation, Saffron Vale, 26, Friday. Vale. Saffron Vale, same last name as Hawthorne. Related? Granite asked into his radio. Checking. Yes. Sister of Hawthorne Vale, 32. Reported missing by her mother this morning. Oh God. He had killed his own sister. More officers arrived. Detectives. One, a woman named Detective Larkspur Stone, sat down with me. "I need you to think carefully. Did she say where specifically her loft was?" 2 blocks from the Copper Bell, Pike Street. But when she turned into the alley, she went down 3rd Avenue. She said it was a shortcut. Building number. She didn't say, but when we were at the bar, she showed me photos on her phone, travel photos, and in one, in the background, there was a window. With a view, I could see the Space Needle and Pike Place Market, specific angle. Only certain buildings have that view. Detective Stone worked fast and cross-referencing addresses, views, buildings in the area. "We have 3 possibilities," he said after 20 minutes, sending teams to each one. I waited. At the home of the kind woman who had let me in. Her name was Meadow. She made tea. She wrapped me in blankets. She didn't ask questions. She just was there. An hour passed, 2, then Larkspur's radio crackled. "We found something. 1847 Pike. Loft building, Unit 3B. Registered to Hawthorne Vale. Door forced open. We're going in." Silence. Long. Too long. Then, "God, Detective, you need to see this." Larkspur looked at me. "Can you come? To identify?" I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to stay in the safety of Meadow's house. We drove to Pike, to the loft building, up to the 3rd floor. The door to Unit 3B was open, police everywhere, crime scene photographers, forensics, And the smell. God, the smell. Sweet, rotten, death. Don't go in, Larkspur said. Just tell me, is this the man? She showed me a photo. Driver's license, Hawthorne Vale, same as his Tinder photos. Same as the man at the bar, same as the man who attacked me. Yes, it's him. The basement, she said softly. We found 3 bodies, women, tentatively identified as Azalea Thorne, Clover Hale, and Saffron Vale based on IDs found. How did they die? Strangulation, with cable, garrote, same way he tried with you. And the bathroom? Larkspur looked at me strangely. How did you know about the bathroom? He said the last one, she fought back, that she was creative, that he slit her throat in the bathtub. Saffron, Larkspur confirmed. In the second-floor bathroom, throat slit, blood, everywhere. Blood on her shoes. I had seen it. Dark stains I thought were just dirt. And him? I asked. Hawthorne? Gone. Not in the loft. Team searching, but... She hesitated. We have his devices, his computer, his phone, left here, in what we found. What? Multiple dating profiles, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Match, OkCupid, all under different names, different photos, slightly altered, but recognizable. Dozens of active conversations, with dozens of women. Dozens. Not just 3 this week, dozens. How many? I could barely ask. The message logs show 32 women in the last 6 months. All similar conversations, all progressing toward in-person meetings. All dead? We don't know. Checking each name against missing persons reports. So far, 8 matches, including Azalea, Clover, and Saffron. 8 confirmed, 32 possible. His phone, Larkspur continued. It has photos from the collection, as he called it, not just the 3 from the basement. There are more, many more, different locations, different buildings, as if he moved frequently, changed locations, to avoid detection. Probably, and his voice broke slightly. The photos are dated. The earliest ones are from 18 months ago. 18 months. He had been doing this for a year and a half. Will you find them all? We'll do our best. But the locations in the photos, some are vague, generic basements. They could be anywhere. Not all of them would be found. Not all of them would be closed. The days that followed were a media circus. Tinder killer, they called him. Hawthorne Vale, 32 years old. No criminal record. Legitimate job in tech. Neighbors said he was quiet, friendly, normal. No one suspected anything. They found more bodies, 5 in total, in different locations throughout Seattle, buildings he had rented under false names. But Hawthorne was never found. He disappeared, like a ghost. Some thought he fled. Out of state, out of the country. With his tech money, he could be anywhere. Others thought he committed suicide, that he knew he was finished, that he chose the easy way out. But I don't believe any of those theories, because a week after the attack, while the search was still active, I received a notification. New match on Tinder. My profile had been inactive. I had deactivated it immediately after that night, but someone had matched with me before I deactivated it. And now they had sent a message. I opened the app, against my better judgment, because I needed to know. The profile was new. Name, Sterling Cross. Different photos, taken from different angles, different locations. But the eyes, those damn green eyes. The message read, "You got away. That's impressive. They don't usually let anyone escape, but there's always next time. And next. And next. Because I can't stop. It's who I am now. Collecting. Always collecting. Happy hunting. Briar." I reported the profile immediately, gave Larkspur the screenshots. "It's him," she confirmed. IP traced to a public cafe. By the time we got there, gone. "What do I do?" My voice trembling. "You're in our system. Alert active. Any suspicious activity, we respond immediately, but..." She hesitated. "He knows you know. He probably won't target you specifically, too risky. He'll move on to easier targets. But that didn't make me feel any better, because he was still out there, creating new profiles, finding new victims, adding to his collection. And I couldn't warn everyone. I couldn't tell every woman on every dating app that the man with green eyes and a charming smile could be a serial killer. All I could do was share my story with the police, with the media, with anyone who would listen, and hope that someone, some other woman about to go to a nearby loft for coffee, would remember and say no and be saved. Because Azalea didn't get that chance, neither did Clover, or Saffron, or the other 5, or the 27 still missing. They had all trusted. They had all swiped right. They had all said yes to just one more drink, just a quick coffee, just a 2-block walk, and none of them came back, except me. I survived by a sharp keychain and pure luck, but I carry the marks. On my neck, where the cord was, red for days, then purple, then yellow, finally fading, except they didn't really fade. I still feel them. Ghost of rough cord, promise of strangulation that almost came. And every app notification now, every ding, every vibration makes me jump. Because it could be him, under a new name, with a new profile, sending a new message. Happy hunting, Briar. Hunting, as if we were animals, prey, collectibles. And he's still hunting, in Seattle or another city, with another name, other photos, same charming smile, same green eyes, waiting for the next match, the next victim, the next addition to a collection that will never be complete. Because collectors like Hawthorne, or Sterling, or whoever he is now, never stop. There's always room for one more. There's always the next target, the next date, the next body in the next basement. And his profile is still active, under another name, stalking, swiping, matching, sending clever messages about seeking real adventures. Because for him, every date is an adventure. Every victim is a trophy. Every body is a piece of art in his dark collection. And somewhere, in some downtown bar, there's a woman sitting in a corner booth, laughing at his jokes, drinking old-fashioned, thinking she's finally found her perfect match, not knowing that in 2 hours she'll be in an alley, with a cable around her neck, becoming the next number in an endless collection. And I can't save her. I can't warn her. I can only share my story and hope that someone listens, that someone remembers, that someone else survives, because there is no such thing as a perfect match. There is only the perfect predator, and he has a profile on every app, with every name, waiting for the next swipe right. My name is Thessaly Monroe, and every time I see a stethoscope, my stomach tightens as if someone had clenched their fist around my intestines. 14 months have passed since that night. 14 months in which I have memorized every crack in the ceiling of my new apartment, every pattern of shadows that the streetlight casts on my walls. 14 months of compulsively checking the locks before going to sleep. 14 months of feeling like my body is no longer completely mine, but I need to tell this story. I need to get it out of my head where it lives like a parasite, reproducing in a loop every time I close my eyes. It all started with a swipe to the right. His name was Thaddeus Crane. In his photos, he appeared in an emergency room doctor's uniform, with a smile that seemed sincere, green eyes that conveyed that perfect combination of confidence and vulnerability. His profile said he worked at Mercy General, that he liked hiking and analog photography. He was 36 years old. His bio was simple. I spend my days saving lives. I'm looking for someone to remind me why they're worth saving. God, I was such an idiot. We texted each other for 2 weeks before meeting. His messages were perfect, attentive without being smothering, funny without trying too hard, deep when the conversation called for it. He told me about his 24-hour shift attending to a multiple vehicle accident on the highway. He told me about the 7-year-old girl he revived after 3 minutes of CPR. He made me feel like I was talking to someone who truly understood the value of life. I worked as a freelance illustrator, spending too many hours alone in front of my digital tablet. At 29, my previous relationships had been a collection of mediocre attempts that ended in mutual boredom. Thaddeus seemed different. He seemed real. Our first date was at a downtown cafe. He arrived 5 minutes late, apologizing because an emergency at the hospital had held him up. He wore a blue shirt that highlighted his eyes and smelled of an expensive but subtle cologne. For 2 hours, we talked about everything: my work, his career, our families, movies, books. He was cultured, reading Cormac McCarthy and Margaret Atwood. He knew artists I had only just discovered. He looked at me when he spoke, really looked at me, as if every word that came out of my mouth mattered. At the end of that first date, when he walked me to my car, he brushed my hand with his. A light touch, almost casual, but it sent electricity through my arm. "I'd like to see you again, Thessaly," he said. My name sounded different on his lips. "How about next week?" I accepted without hesitation. The second date was at an Italian restaurant. The third was at an art gallery where we pretended to understand conceptual art and laughed at our shared ignorance. The fourth was a walk through the park by the river as the sun set, painting the sky orange and purple. After each date, he would send me a goodnight message. Simple, straightforward, but it made me smile in the darkness of my room. 6 weeks passed. 6 weeks of building what I thought was trust. Then he invited me to dinner at his place. "I cook a decent lasagna," he wrote, "and I have a wine collection that needs to be appreciated by someone other than me. Are you up for it?" I should have thought it through more. I should have suggested we meet somewhere public first, that we leave it for later. But we had been messaging for a week and a half. I had shared details of my life that I didn't tell just anyone, and he had done the same. I had seen photos of his family, his dog that had died the year before, his trips to Costa Rica and Portugal. What could go wrong? I gave him my address so he could pick me up on Saturday at 7. I spent all Saturday afternoon choosing what to wear. I tried on 5 different outfits before settling on a dark green knee-length dress. Not too formal, not too casual. I carefully applied my makeup, a touch of eyeshadow, nude lipstick, mascara. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who seemed to be in control of her life, who knew what she was doing. What a perfect lie. Thaddeus arrived on time. He drove an immaculate black Audi. During the drive, we talked about our weeks, an exhibition I had seen, a patient he had treated with a particularly moving story. He lived on the outskirts of the city, in a quiet residential area. The houses were spacious, with well-kept gardens and white wooden fences. His house was a 2-story colonial style with a stone entrance and a small front garden. The porch lights were on, giving it a cozy appearance. "Welcome to my humble abode," he said with a smile as he opened the door. The interior was exactly what you would expect from a successful single doctor. Modern but comfortable furniture, walls in neutral tones, some abstract artwork. Everything was clean and tidy. There were no signs of the typical male mess. The dining room table was already set for 2, with unlit white candles and wine glasses reflecting the light from the ceiling. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, taking off his jacket. "The wine is breathing in the kitchen. Would you prefer red or white?" "Red is fine." While he went to the kitchen, I looked around. A bookshelf full of medical books, a few novels, framed photographs. I went over to look at them. Thaddeus at what looked like his medical school graduation, wearing a gown and cap, smiling next to an older couple who I assumed were his parents. Another of him in a paramedic's uniform, younger, maybe in his early 20s. A more recent one on some tropical beach, tanned and relaxed. "My parents," he said behind me, making me jump slightly. He was holding 2 glasses of wine. "They retired to Florida 3 years ago. I visit them when I can." He handed me a glass. The wine was a deep red, almost black. It's an Argentine Malbec, he explained. One of my favorites. We toasted. The wine was smooth, with notes of red fruit and a hint of spice. The dinner was wonderful. The lasagna was perfect, with layers of pasta, meat, and cheese that melted in my mouth. We talked for hours. The candles now lit between us, creating dancing shadows on the walls. He told me about his medical residency, the sleepless nights, the first patient he lost, and how he cried in the hospital bathroom for 20 minutes. I told him about my father, who died when I was 17, about how art had become my way of processing grief. We poured ourselves more wine, and more. By 10 o'clock at night, I felt a warm haze in my head. I wasn't drunk, but I was definitely relaxed. Thaddeus suggested we move to the couch and put on some music. I agreed, taking my glass with me. The sofa was soft leather, dark brown. I sank into it while Thaddeus put jazz music on a vintage record player. Miles Davis. Kinda blue. The sound filled the room with its seductive melancholy. He sat down next to me, not too close, but close enough for me to feel his presence. His hand found mine on the cushion between us. "I'm having a great time, Thessaly," he said softly. "Me too." He leaned toward me. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. It tasted of wine and something sweeter. My heart raced. It had been so long since my last relationship, so long since anyone had touched me like this. The kiss deepened. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer. The music continued to play, Miles Davis's trumpet wailing in the background. My hands found his neck, his shoulders. Then his hand moved up my back, burying itself in my hair. The grip was firm, almost to the point of being too much. I pulled away slightly. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Yes, just let's take it slow, okay?" He smiled. "Of course. I'm sorry I got carried away." We separated a little, catching our breath. My head was spinning, but I attributed it to the wine and adrenaline. "Want some more wine?" he offered. "I think I've had enough," I laughed. "Some water would be better." "Sure. I'll be back in a second." He got up and went to the kitchen. I took advantage of the moment to compose myself, adjust my dress, run my fingers through my hair. I looked at my phone. It was 10:47 p.m. I had a message from my friend Waverly asking how the date was going. I replied quickly, "Everything's fine. I'll tell you tomorrow." Thaddeus returned with a glass of water and sat down again, this time a little further away, respecting my request to take it slow. We continued talking now with an underlying sexual tension that neither of us ignored. The music changed to Chet Baker. The singer's voice was like dark honey. "There's something I want to show you," Thaddeus said eventually. "In my studio, upstairs, I have some photographs I recently developed. You mentioned you were interested in analog photography." I should have said no. I should have said it was late, that I needed to go. But the truth is, I didn't want the night to end. I was drawn to him in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Sure," I said. "I'd love to see them." We went upstairs. The second floor was darker, lit only by a dim light in the hallway. There were 4 doors. 3 were closed, 1 was ajar. "The studio is at the end," he said. We walked down the hallway. My footsteps were light on the thick carpet. The house was silent except for the music coming faintly from downstairs. He opened the studio door and turned on the light. It was a medium-sized room with a desk, a computer, and walls covered with black and white photographs. Landscapes mainly, some portraits. They were good, showing a real artistic eye. "These are impressive," I said sincerely, moving closer to look at a photo of a bridge in the fog. "Thank you. Photography is my way of disconnecting from the hospital, something I do just for pleasure, without the pressure of saving lives." I was looking at the photos when I felt his hands on my shoulders, not in a threatening way, just a gentle touch. "You're beautiful, Thessaly," he murmured close to my ear. I turned toward him. We kissed again, this time with more urgency. His hands moved over my body, mine over his. Rationality began to slip away, replaced by pure desire. Then, abruptly, he pulled away. "Wait," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I need to use the bathroom. Just give me a minute." He left the studio, leaving me slightly disoriented and my heart racing. I heard his footsteps receding down the hall, a door opening and closing. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I looked around the studio again, now paying more attention to the details. There was a filing cabinet in the corner, some books stacked on the desk, a Leica camera on a shelf. Everything looked normal. Exactly what you'd expect from the workspace of an amateur photographer. 2 minutes passed. 3. I started to feel uncomfortable standing alone in his studio. I stepped out into the hallway. "Thaddeus," I called. Silence. I walked down the hallway. The door to what I assumed was the bathroom was ajar, the light on, but no one was inside. A chill ran through me. "Thaddeus," I repeated louder this time. Nothing. All the other doors were closed. I tried one, locked. The next one too. Then I noticed that one of the doors at the end of the hallway was slightly open. It hadn't been like that before, I was sure. My instincts screamed at me to go downstairs and leave, but curiosity, that damn human curiosity, pushed me toward that door. I pushed it gently. It creaked on its hinges. The room was dark. I felt along the wall for a light switch. My fingers found it, and I pressed it. The fluorescent light flickered before coming on fully, flooding the room with a clinical white glow. What I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't a bedroom. It wasn't a study. It was something else entirely. The walls were covered with metal shelves. On the shelves were vials, labeled with names I didn't immediately recognize. Ketamine, Rohypnol, Propofol, GHB. There were syringes, dozens of them, some still in sterile packaging, others used and discarded in a red plastic container. The container was almost full. In the center of the room was a medical stretcher. Leather straps hung from its sides. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. There was a logical explanation. There had to be. He was a doctor. Maybe he practiced at home. Maybe. Then I saw the cabinet. The door was ajar, revealing its contents. There were more jars, more medical equipment, and on the floor, stains. Dark brown stains that looked like they had been cleaned but were still visible on the light wood. Blood. It was blood. My hand flew to my mouth. Nausea hit me like a wave. I backed away, bumping into the wall behind me. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears, a frantic drumbeat that drowned out all coherent thought. I needed to get out. I needed to get out now. I turned toward the door just as a hand grabbed my wrist. I screamed. Thaddeus was there, in the doorway, with an expression I had never seen on his face before. The mask of kindness had fallen away. His green eyes were cold, calculating. "You shouldn't have come in here, Thessaly," he said in a flat voice. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. "Let go of me." "Calm down. I can explain." "Explain what? What is all this?" "It's for my work, medical research, all legal, I promise." He was lying. Every instinct in my body screamed that he was lying. "Let me go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to leave." "We're not done getting to know each other yet," he replied, and there was something in his tone that turned my veins to ice. With my free hand, I punched him in the face. It wasn't a hard punch, but it took him by surprise. He loosened his grip enough for me to break free. I ran toward the stairs. I heard his footsteps behind me, heavy and fast. "Thessaly, don't be silly. You can't leave like this." I stumbled down the stairs, grabbing the handrail to keep from falling. The living room was there, the candles still burning, the jazz still playing. Everything seemed so normal, so civilized. A perfect lie. My purse was next to the sofa. I lunged for it, desperately searching for my phone. It wasn't there. I searched frantically, throwing the contents of my purse onto the floor. Keys, wallet, makeup, tampons. But not my phone. Looking for this? Thaddeus's voice came from the stairs. I looked up. He was standing on the bottom step, holding my phone aloft, wearing an expression of fake sympathy. I took it when you went to the bathroom before dinner, he explained. It's always better to be safe than sorry, you know, especially after what happened with Keziah. Keziah. The name meant nothing to me. Give me my phone, I demanded, hating how my voice trembled. Not yet. We need to talk first. He came down the rest of the stairs, moving slowly, like a predator, certain his prey has no escape. I understand you're scared, but if you give me a chance to explain, you'll see there's nothing to worry about. I backed toward the front door. Open the door. Let me go, and I won't call the police. He laughed. It wasn't a warm laugh. Sally, honey, we can't do that. You've seen too much. Pure terror washed over me. What are you going to do to me? That's up to you. You can make this easy or difficult. I prefer easy. I always prefer easy. My back slammed against the door. I fumbled for the handle behind me without taking my eyes off him. The door is locked, he informed me. Electronic lock. It only opens with the app on my phone or with your phone if you are on my trusted list, which you're not. I was trapped. I looked around desperately for another way out, something, anything. The windows. There were large windows in the living room. Thaddeus followed my gaze and smiled. Tempered glass. You could try, but it would take time to break. Time you don't have. He moved closer. I moved around the sofa, keeping it between us. You don't have to do this, I tried to reason, even though my voice sounded historic even to my own ears. Whatever you're planning, you can still stop. I can forget all this. We can what? Pretend you didn't see my workroom? That you don't know what I do here? He paused, tilting his head. It doesn't work that way, Thessaly. Once you see, you can't unsee. What did you do to them? The words came out before I could stop them. The other women. His expression changed. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was pride. I showed them something real, he said softly. I showed them what it feels like to lose control completely, to surrender. Most of them fought at first, just like you are, but eventually they all gave in. Some even enjoyed it in a way. The journey, the experience of floating between life and death. Bile rose in my throat. You drugged them. I freed them. There's a difference. He began to move around the couch toward me. Ketamine is fascinating, you know. In the right doses, it creates total dissociation. The mind separates from the body. Some call it the K-hole. It's like floating in a vacuum with no anchor to reality. I kept moving, keeping the couch between us. My mind was racing. I needed a plan. I needed a way out. And when they're in that state, he continued, his voice taking on an almost dreamy tone, they're completely malleable, defenseless, without that annoying resistance that humans always maintain. It's pure, honest. You're sick, I spat. I'm exploring. There's a difference. Then he moved fast. He jumped over the sofa instead of going around it, a move I didn't anticipate. His hand grabbed my arm before I could react. I kicked him, connecting with his shin. He growled but didn't let go. With his other hand, he pulled something out of his pocket. A syringe. Terror gave me strength I didn't know I had. I twisted, scratched, bit. My teeth sank into his forearm. The taste of blood filled my mouth. Bitch, he yelled, momentarily letting go of me. I ran toward the kitchen. Maybe there was a back door, another way out. My vision was clouded by tears and panic. The kitchen was dark except for the light coming from the living room. I searched the drawers, needing something. Anything I could use to defend myself. My hands found a knife. It wasn't big, but it would have to do. I turned just in time to see him enter the kitchen. Don't make this harder, he said, though his voice now sounded tense. Blood dripped from the wound on his arm. You're just prolonging the inevitable. I held the knife in front of me with trembling hands. Stay back. Or what? Are you going to stab me? He laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. Thessaly, you're not a killer. You're a sensitive artist who cries at sad movies. You don't have what it takes." He was right. I wasn't violent. The idea of plunging a knife into human flesh repulsed me. But the idea of what he planned to do to me repulsed me even more. "You don't know me," I said, surprised by the firmness in my voice. "I know you better than you think. I spent weeks studying you before making contact. Your social media profile, your patterns, your friends. I know you live alone. I know your mother is on a Mediterranean cruise and won't be back for 3 weeks. I know your best friend Waverly is in Seattle visiting her brother. I know no one will look for you until Monday, at the earliest." The horror of his words hit me. He had been so meticulous, so careful. "You're a monster," I whispered. "I'm practical." He took a step closer. "And you're in my house, by my rules." He lunged at me. I swung the knife in a wild arc. I felt resistance, then something warm splattered my hand. Thaddeus staggered back, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. I had cut him. For a second, neither of us moved, both equally surprised. Then his expression darkened. The mask of civility disappeared completely, replaced by pure rage. "Damn bitch," he hissed. I ran. Back into the living room, my feet slipping on the hardwood floor. I heard his heavy footsteps behind me, slower now but still determined. The windows. I needed to break the windows. I grabbed one of the dining room chairs, heavy and solid wood. I lifted it, using all my strength, and threw it at the largest window. The glass exploded with a deafening sound. Shards flew everywhere, reflecting the candlelight like deadly diamonds. I didn't wait to see if I had broken enough glass. I ran to the window, stepping on shards that crunched under my feet. The frame still had sharp pieces, but it didn't matter. I climbed up, feeling the glass cutting into my hands, my arms, my legs. The pain was sharp but distant, drowned out by adrenaline. Hands grabbed my ankle just as I was halfway up. I clung to the frame, ignoring how the glass dug deeper into my palms. "No," I screamed, kicking back with my free foot. I connected with something. I heard a growl, and the grip loosened slightly. I pushed forward, falling out the window into the night. I landed in the front yard bushes, branches pricking my skin, but I was out. I was out. I stood up, staggering, disoriented. The street was dark and quiet. The neighboring houses had their lights off. It was almost 2 a.m. I started running down the street barefoot, bleeding, not knowing which direction I was going. "Help!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. "Someone help me!" My voice broke in the night. There was no answer. I looked back. Thaddeus was coming out the front door, a dark silhouette against the light of his house. I ran faster even though my legs threatened to collapse under my weight. The pavement was cold and rough under my bare feet. Blood left a trail behind me, dark droplets on the gray asphalt. I heard a car engine start. Headlights illuminated the street behind me. No, 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 no. I saw a house with lights on at the end of the street. I ran toward it, using the last reserves of my energy. My vision was beginning to blur at the edges. The shock, the adrenaline, the blood loss, it was all beginning to take its toll. The car was getting closer. I could hear it, getting closer and closer. I reached the lit house and banged on the door frantically. "Help! Please! Open the door!" Nothing. I knocked harder, my fists leaving bloody smears on the white door. "Someone is trying to kill me. Please!" The car's headlights illuminated the driveway. It stopped in the street, engine running. Then the door opened. An older man, probably in his 70s, looked at me with huge eyes. He was wearing a robe and slippers. "Please," I begged. "Call the police. He's trying to kill me." He looked past me at the car in the street, then back at my condition, covered in blood, glass still embedded in my skin, dress torn to shreds. "Come in," he said, ushering me through. "Come in quickly." I staggered inside. He closed the door behind me and slid the bolt. "Sit down before you faint," he ordered, guiding me to a sofa. "Bernadette," he called into the house. "Call 911. A woman appeared, equally elderly, with gray hair and curlers. She gasped when she saw me. "There's a man," I managed to say, though my tongue felt thick in my mouth. "In the car outside. Don't let him in. He's dangerous." The man went to the window and looked cautiously through the blinds. "There's a black car. He's not doing anything, just waiting." Bernadette was already talking to the 911 operator, describing the situation. I leaned back on the sofa. Now that I had stopped moving, the pain came in waves. My hands burned where the glass had cut them. My legs, too. Every inch of my body ached. "Who is that man?" asked the old man, still looking out the window. "His name is Thaddeus Crane," I said, my voice sounding distant even to me. "He says he's a doctor, but he has a room, drugs, and there are other women." My voice broke. "I think he killed other women." Bernadette stopped talking on the phone for a moment, looking at me in horror. Then she refocused on the call, repeating what I had just said with renewed urgency. "The police are on their way," she said. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It felt like an eternity. "He's moving," the old man reported. "The car. It's leaving." I staggered to the window and looked out. The Audi's taillights were receding down the street, turning a corner and disappearing. He was gone. He had fled. The sirens arrived exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds later. I know because I counted every second, clinging to that reality so I wouldn't completely fall apart. 2 patrol cars arrived first, then an ambulance. The paramedics checked me over, removing shards of glass, bandaging the deepest cuts. One of the officers took my statement while the other talked on the radio, relaying the description of Thaddeus and his vehicle. "We need you to take us to the house," said the officer, a woman with short hair and sharp eyes. "Can you remember the address?" I gave the address. I remembered it perfectly. Every detail of that night was etched in my memory with painful clarity. More patrol cars were dispatched to Thaddeus's house. I was taken by ambulance to the hospital, accompanied by 2 officers. On the way, a detective named Marlowe joined us, asking more questions and recording my testimony on her phone. At the hospital, I spent the next 3 hours being examined, photographed, stitched up. 32 stitches in total, distributed between my hands, arms, and legs. They ran blood tests looking for any drugs Thaddeus might have administered without my knowledge. They found traces of rohypnol in my system. Not much, probably mixed into the wine or water he gave me. Enough to lower my inhibitions, cloud my judgment, but not enough to knock me out completely. Still not enough, I thought. That's why he needed the syringe. Detective Marlowe returned at 6 in the morning. Dawn light filtered through the window of my private hospital room. "We found the house," she said, sitting down in the chair next to my bed. "Everything was just as you described. The room with the drugs, the syringes, the bloodstains." "Did you catch him?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from the look on her face. "Not yet. His car was found abandoned 3 miles from his house. He left his phone behind too. He knew we could track it. But we have his photo, his fingerprints, his DNA from the blood he left behind, and we found something else." He paused, as if considering how much to tell me. "What?" I pressed. "An album, photos of women. 7 in total, including you, the other 6. He swallowed. "We're in the process of identifying them, but based on what we found and reports of missing persons that match the profile, we believe they're all dead." 7. There had been 7, and I almost became the 8th. "One of them was Keziah Oaks," Marlowe continued. "Reported missing 8 months ago after a date. Her family never stopped looking for her. We believe her body was disposed of in the river, like the others." Keziah, the name Thaddeus had mentioned. "We found journals too," Marlowe said, detailing every encounter, the drugs he used, the victim's reactions, timings. It's all meticulously documented. "Why?" The question came out as a whisper. "Why did he do this?" "That," Marlowe said, standing up, "is something we hope to find out when we catch him." I spent 3 days in the hospital. My mother cut her cruise short and flew back on the first available flight. Waverly drove all night from Seattle. They both cried when they saw me, and I cried with them. The news exploded. The story of the Doctor of Death was on every channel. My name was initially leaked, then protected after my lawyer threatened to sue any media outlet that published it. But online, in forums and social media, my identity became public anyway. People speculated, conspiracy theories circulated, and some sick individuals even suggested that I had caused it all or that I was a liar seeking attention. Thaddeus Crane was on the run. His face was on every newscast, his name in every newspaper. A federal warrant was issued, but it's easy to disappear in the United States if you know how, and he clearly did. The other 6 women were identified in the following weeks. Keziah Oaks, 26, nurse. Drusilla Yang, 31, lawyer. Imogen Soto, 28, teacher. Marceline James, 33, engineer. Poet Ashford, 29, chef. Saffron Cole, 32, accountant. All professionals. All intelligent. They had all met Thaddeus on dating apps using different names and profiles. He was always a doctor, always saving lives, always the perfect partner, until he wasn't. Their bodies were eventually found. The river had been thoroughly searched. 6 women, recovered from the depths, returned to their families for a proper burial. I attended all the funerals. It was the least I could do. I had survived. They hadn't. Marlowe kept in touch with me. He updated me on the investigation, on the efforts to find Thaddeus. Months passed. 6 months. 8. 10. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. He'll eventually make a mistake, Marlowe assured me. They always do. But as time went on, I began to doubt it. I moved. I couldn't stay in my old apartment, in my old life. I went to another city, a place where no one knew me, where I could start over. I legally changed my name. I'm no longer Thessaly Monroe. That name died that night along with the other 6. I went back to therapy. 3 times a week at first, then twice, now once. We talk about trauma, about survival, about survivor's guilt. Because yes, I feel guilty. Guilty for surviving when the others didn't. Guilty for not seeing the warning signs that were perhaps there all along. My therapist tells me there were no signs, that Thaddeus was a consummate psychopath, that he had perfected his mask over years, that it wasn't my fault. Some days I believe him. Most days I don't. I don't go on dates anymore. The idea of meeting someone new, of trusting a stranger, fills me with paralyzing terror. I deleted all the apps from my phone. I changed my number. I became a ghost. Waverly visits me sometimes. She tries to cheer me up, to convince me to start living again. But how can you start living again when every time you close your eyes you see his face? When every man in a medical uniform makes you check the nearest exits? My mother has stopped asking when I'll be myself again. I think she finally understands that that person no longer exists. 14 months have passed. Thaddeus Crane is still free. Somewhere out there he's living a different life, with a different name, a different story. Maybe he's already found another woman. Maybe he's already gone back to his boss. There are nights when I wake up sweating, convinced he's in my room holding a syringe, smiling that smile I thought was genuine. I check the locks. All of them. 3 times before I go to sleep, I sleep with the lights on. And every time I see a doctor, every time I need treatment and someone with a stethoscope comes near, my body tenses, ready to run. Because I learned something that night at Thaddeus Crane's house. Monsters don't always have fangs and claws. Sometimes they have green eyes and kind smiles. Sometimes they invite you to dinner and talk about saving lives. And sometimes you survive, but surviving doesn't mean you're whole. It doesn't mean you're safe. It just means you keep breathing, keep moving through the days, carrying the weight of what you saw, what almost happened to you, what happened to the others. 6 women who weren't as lucky as I was. 6 women who trusted the wrong man at the wrong time. 6 women who deserved to live. And me, living every day with the feeling that he could be watching, waiting, planning the perfect moment to finish what he started. Detective Marlowe calls me every month. "We're still looking for him," she always says. "We haven't given up." I haven't given up either, but there's a difference between not giving up and actually living, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do the latter when the shadow of the former looms over every moment of my existence. I still wake up with the smell. It's not just paint, although that's what turns my stomach every time I walk past a gallery or art studio on the cobblestone streets of Omaha. It's paint mixed with something metallic, something that sticks to my tongue like wet rust. Blood. Mine. Hers. Who knows how many others before. It was 2 years ago, but the body doesn't forget. My name is Elowyn Thorne, and if you ask me why I'm still in this Nebraska town, with its winds that lash like invisible blades and its sunsets that paint the sky an unnaturally vivid red, I tell you it's because running away would be admitting defeat. But I didn't lose. I survived. And every night, when my phone vibrates with a notification from Tinder, a match, a like, a promise of something normal, the memory drags me back to that room. I'm telling you this as if we were sitting in a dark bar with a warm beer in our hands, because keeping it inside is like swallowing glass. It starts with a swipe, a simple gesture on the screen. It was an autumn night in 2023, one of those nights when the air in Omaha smells of rotten leaves and smoke from distant chimneys. I had just moved here from Portland, fleeing a divorce that left me with debt and an empty apartment where my plants were withering because I couldn't even remember to water them. I was 32 years old, working freelance editing scripts for independent podcasts, ghost stories, and mysteries that paid just enough to keep me from starving, and a Tinder account that I updated more out of habit than hope. I swiped right on profiles that promised something authentic. Not the guys with gym selfies, but the women with eyes that looked like they had seen storms. And then she appeared, Zinnia Larkspur. The name sounded like a verse from forgotten poetry, one of those you read in a secondhand book and makes you pause. Her profile photo, a girl of about 28, smiling with that lazy curve that says, "I know a secret, but I'm not telling you yet." Short black hair, messy as if she had just gotten out of bed after a long nap. Floral tattoos climbing up her left forearm. Roses and vines twisting like living veins. The bio, artist seeking muse, want to pose for chaos. I laughed to myself in my kitchen, the microwave humming in the background as I heated up a can of soup. Chaos. It sounded fun. I swiped right. The match came with a ding that snapped me out of my lethargy. "Hello, potential muse. Coffee at the waiting room tomorrow, 7 p.m. Bring your best disastrous smile." His message was flirty, playful, with emojis of paintbrushes and wine glasses. I replied quickly, because why not? Disastrous is my specialty. I'll be there. I spent the rest of the night nervous, trying on clothes in front of my cracked bathroom mirror. A tight black dress, knee-high boots, subtle makeup to hide the dark circles under my eyes. I felt alive for the first time in months, as if Omaha could be a new beginning rather than just a temporary exile. I arrived early at the waiting room, a hipster cafe in the heart of Dundee with exposed brick walls and recycled wood tables that smelled of roasted coffee and vanilla. The place was half full, couples whispering in corners, a group of Creighton college students laughing about exams, the tattooed barista serving lattes with foam art. I sat at a table by the window, overlooking the flashing lights of Farnham Street, and ordered a black Americano to calm the nerves tingling in my chest. Every time the door opened with its jingle, I looked up, my heart beating a little faster. What if she didn't come? What if it was a catfish? Those silly doubts that make you question everything. She walked in at 7:05, and the world tilted a little. Zinnia was taller than she appeared in the photos, slim but with that feline grace of someone who moves as if space bends around them. She wore a black pleated skirt that fell to her knees, a loose white blouse with dried paint stains on the sleeves and worn combat boots. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and those floral tattoos peeked out when she moved. She saw me right away, and her smile widened, revealing white teeth and a subtle piercing on her lower lip. Allowin', right? God, you're even prettier in person. I love that dress. It looks like I painted it myself. We hugged, as if we had known each other forever, a brief but intense touch. Her perfume, jasmine, and something earthy like wet clay, invading my senses. We sat down, and the conversation flowed immediately, as if we had been waiting for this moment. We talked about art first, because her bio asked for it. She was a painter, she told me, specializing in abstractions that captured the raw essence of human desire. She sold in local galleries, nothing big, but enough to pay for her loft in Midtown. And you? What brings you to this dusty city? I told her about the divorce, editing horror scripts that kept me awake all night imagining bloody endings. She laughed, a low, hoarse sound that made my skin crawl. Horror, huh? Sounds like my kind of muse. I paint what people don't dare to say, the hunger that eats us from within. The tension started subtly, like a taut thread beneath the surface. We ordered a second round. She had a chai latte with extra cinnamon. I had another Americano, and her casual brushes became intentional. Her hand brushing mine as she passed the sugar, her knees bumping under the table and staying there, warm against mine. She asked me deep questions too soon. What really scares you, Elowen? Not divorce. That's just noise. What keeps you awake, sweating? I swallowed, the bitter coffee in my throat. Loneliness, I guess. Feeling like no one really sees you. His eyes darkened a little, pupils dilating like spilled ink. I see you. And believe me, when I paint someone, I strip them down to the bone. The clock read 9 when he suggested going to his studio. He lives nearby in an old loft that used to be a meat factory, perfect for dirty art. Want to see my chaos in action? My pulse quickened, a mixture of excitement and that primitive instinct that whispers, run. But the wine we ordered, after coffee, a red Merlot that stained my lips, had loosened my inhibitions. Yes, show me your world. We paid and stepped out into the cold night, the Nebraska wind whipping the dry leaves as if the sky were angry. We walked down Dodge Street, his fingers intertwined with mine, pulling me along as if I were already part of his canvas. He talked non-stop about his pieces. I sold the last one for $800. It's called Broken Longing. It's about how love cuts you in half. His loft was in a decrepit building on the edge of Midtown, one of those industrial remnants with tall, rusty windows that creaked like old bones. We climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs, the echo of our footsteps bouncing off the bare walls. My heart was pounding, not just from the effort, but from anticipation. What if this was the beginning of something? A night of laughter and intertwined bodies, of art and wine until dawn. She took out a rusty key and opened the heavy door, a squeak that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Welcome to my sanctuary," she murmured, gently pushing me inside. The smell hit me first. Fresh paint, yes, but not the clean kind of acrylics in a store. It was thick, oily, with a chemical undertone that stuck to my throat like stale cigarette smoke. The loft was huge, an open space with high ceilings and exposed beams, lit by floor lamps with bare bulbs that cast shadows as long as fingers. Walls covered with canvases, dozens of them, stacked against the brick surfaces, hanging from makeshift strings. At first, I thought it was cool, chaotic as promised. Abstract human silhouettes, twisted shapes in shades of blue and black, splashed with red that seemed to vibrate in the dim light. "God, Zinnia, this is intense," I said, forcing a smile as I set my bag down on a makeshift table made of wooden crates. She closed the door behind us. The click of the key in the lock was like a gunshot in my head. My blood ran cold for a second, but I chalked it up to nerves. "Intense is my middle name," she replied, taking off her jacket and hanging it on a hook. She was now wearing only her blouse, and I saw more tattoos, flowers climbing up her collarbone, a thorny rose bush ending in a stylized drop of blood. She moved toward an open kitchen in the corner, pulling a bottle of wine from a refrigerator that hummed like a dying insect. Wine. I have a Cabernet that matches the red in my paintings. I nodded, though my stomach churned a little at the smell. I approached a large canvas in the center of the space, a tall easel with a 10-foot canvas. The central figure was a woman, or what looked like one, arms outstretched as if in supplication, her torso open in a swirl of red and black. "Is this inspired by someone?" I asked, touching the edge with my fingers. The paint was dry but rough, as if sand had been mixed in. Or something worse. Zinnia approached from behind, her warm breath on my ear. "All my work is. Every stroke comes from someone I knew, touched, absorbed." Her hand rested on my waist, a light touch that made me tense. I turned my head, and her smile was the same as in the cafe, but now there was something sharp about it, like a hidden edge. "You'll be perfect for the next one. You have that vulnerability in your eyes, Elowen, like a flower about to wilt." I laughed nervously, stepping back a little to take the glass of wine she offered me. The liquid was dark, almost black in the light, and I took a big sip to calm the pulse pounding in my temples. "You're intense, huh? I like that, but where's the bathroom?" The wine goes straight to my head. She pointed to a door at the back, behind a curtain of stained canvas. "That way. Don't look too closely. There are sketches that aren't ready." I walked toward the bathroom, the cold concrete floor beneath my boots, each step echoing in the silence I now noticed. There was no music, no bustle of the city seeping in, just the hum of the refrigerator and a distant drip, like a poorly closed faucet. I pushed the curtain aside and entered the bathroom. A tiny space with cracked tiles and a fogged-up mirror. I washed my hands, splashing cold water on my face to clear my head. What the hell was I doing? She was pretty, yes, but something in her gaze made my nerves jangle. That canvas. The red seemed too real, too sticky. I shook my head. Horror screenwriter paranoia. I stepped out and there she was, standing by the central easel, holding a paintbrush in one hand and, what was that in the other? A metallic glint. My heart skipped a beat. It was a box cutter, the kind with a retractable blade that artists use to cut canvas, but this blade was extended, glinting under the lamp. Zinnia. What? The word stuck in my throat when I saw her expression. The flirtatious smile had twisted into something predatory, eyes shining like an animal in the dark. "Shh, Muse. It's time to pose. You will be my masterpiece." Terror washed over me like an icy wave, freezing me in place for an eternal second. I tried to back away, but my legs were lead, the wine weighing heavy in my stomach. "What are you saying? This isn't funny." My voice came out high-pitched, a squeak I didn't recognize as my own. She took a step forward, the box cutter spinning lazily in her hand. "It's not a joke, Elowen. It's art." The others understood. In the end, 4 muses before you, all so alive, so full of color, their essences are in every stroke. 4. The word hit me like a punch. I vaguely remembered local news stories, disappearances in Omaha, young women, app dates, bodies found in trash bags by the Missouri River, like that girl from Lincoln, Sydney Loof, dismembered years ago. Was she part of that? No, it couldn't be. But panic was already running through my veins like acid, making my hands shake so much that the wine glass slipped from my grasp, crashing to the floor in a burst of glass and red liquid that splattered my boots like blood. I ran, or tried to. Crawled rather, because my knees buckled, terror turning my muscles to jelly. I screamed, a guttural sound that tore through the air. "Help! Someone!" But the loft was a bunker, thick brick walls that devoured sound. Zinnia laughed, a low, musical sound that chilled me more than metal. No one can hear you here, love. This place was a cold storage room. The cold keeps secrets. I saw her out of the corner of my eye, advancing gracefully, the box cutter raised like an extension of her tattooed arm. I tried to reach the door, my nails scraping the concrete, leaving grooves in the skin of my fingers. The key. God, the key was in her pocket. I turned, rolling over the broken glass, and pain exploded in my palms, shards embedding themselves like tiny teeth. I screamed again, kicking out at her as she lunged. My boot connected with her shin, a dull thud that made her stagger. Crazy bitch, get away from me. But she was quick, stronger than she looked, fueled by that madness that glinted in her eyes. She grabbed my hair, pulling my head back with a tug that ripped out strands, my scalp burning like fire. Hold still. Just an initial cut to release the flow. You'll be beautiful in red. The blade pressed against my cheek, cold and ruthless, and I felt the skin give way. A warm trickle ran down my neck, salty on my lips when I licked it instinctively. The pain was sharp, a lash that clouded my vision with tears. Please. No. Muffled sobs escaped my chest, my breath a gasping wheeze as I struggled. I rolled over, knocking over an easel in the process. Canvases fell like avalanches, one landing on top of us and covering us in dust and dried paint. Under that heavy fabric, I smelled it again. Not just red oil paint, but something rancid, rotten, like meat left out in the sun. I freed myself for a second, crawling toward the nearest window. It was tall, with corroded metal frames and dirty glass overlooking a dark alley. My palms were bleeding, leaving red trails on the floor, but I kept going, panic driving me like a wounded animal. Behind me, Zinnia cursed, pushing the canvases aside with fury. "You're not leaving. You're mine." Her knife whistled through the air, grazing my calf and opening a line of fire that made me howl. The fabric of my dress tore, and I felt the cold air on the wound, warm blood dripping down my leg. I reached the window, my fingers slippery on the frame. I pushed, but it was stuck, years of grime and rust welding it in place. I rammed my shoulder into it, once, twice, the glass vibrating but not giving way. Tears and sweat blinded me, my heart a drum in my ears. "Help! For God's sake!" Zinnia was close now, her shadow lengthening like a claw. I heard her panting, excited, as if this were part of the ritual. The others screamed the same. The first, a redhead from Tinder named Marigold Voss. Ironic, isn't it? Thought it was a game until I slit her throat in the creative session. Her blood splattered the perfect canvas, bright red against the white of her skin. I sold that piece as bloody inspiration for $200 at a gallery in Benson. No one asked about the stains that weren't paint. His words paralyzed me for a moment, the horror sinking in like an anchor. Marigold Voss. I remembered the name from a blurry article in the Omaha World Herald. A missing date, body found in pieces in a ditch near Ralston. And the others, Juniper Hale, a 25-year-old barista who never returned to her shift. Leora Fenn, a freelance writer like me, whose laptop was found in a dumpster with drafts of unfinished poems. And Sable Quill, like an echo of her last name, an art student at UNO who posed once and vanished. 4 women, all matches, all muses turned into canvases, and I was the 5th. Panic gave me strength. I slammed my elbow into the window, ignoring the crunch of bone against glass. Nothing. Zinnia reached me, her weight falling on my back, the box cutter now pressing against the back of my neck. "Don't fight it, Elowen. Let it flow. Imagine your silhouette on my wall, eternal." Her breath was hot, reeking of wine and madness, and I felt the blade bite. A shallow cut that burned like acid. Fresh blood ran down my spine, soaking my blouse. I was sobbing now, ugly, choked sobs that suffocated me, my body shaking uncontrollably. "Please, I have a family. I don't want to die like this." But she didn't stop. Her free hand held my wrist, twisting it until I heard a pop in the joint. white pain exploding in my arm. I rolled under her, kicking blindly, my knee connecting with her abdomen. She doubled over with a grunt, letting go enough for me to crawl to a nearby table. On it, I saw tools, paintbrushes, tubes of paint, and, thank God, a carpenter's hammer, rusty but heavy. I grabbed it with my good hand, the handle sticky with dried paint, and swung it at her head as she lunged again. The impact was dull, metal against bone, and she fell to her side, the box cutter flying from her hand and sliding under a canvas. "Damn bitch," she hissed, her blood dripping from a split eyebrow. But she didn't stop. Rage drove her on, crawling toward me like a wounded spider. I staggered to my feet, the heavy hammer in my fist, and ran toward the kitchen. The dripping I'd heard before. It was a sink with a butcher knife stuck in the cutting board, wilted vegetable leaves around it. I yanked it out, the serrated edge gleaming, and spun around just as she charged. We fought like animals, bodies crashing against the countertop, plates cascading to the floor. Her fingernail dug into my cheek, reopening the old cut, and I screamed as I pushed her against the wall. The butcher knife sank into her shoulder, not deep, but enough to make her howl and let go. Blood, both of ours, spattered everywhere, the loft becoming one of her macabre canvases. "I'm going to gut you," she roared, ripping the knife out and throwing it aside, but I was already running again toward the door this time, my feet slipping in the red puddle on the floor. The key. I searched his pockets in a desperate rush when I knocked him down near the entrance, my knees on his chest, hammer raised. She struggled, clawing at my arms, leaving burning gashes. "Give me the key, you psychopath." But he didn't have it. The door opened with an internal lock, a latch that had to be turned from the inside. I remembered now, the click when I entered. Pure desperation. I hit the latch with the hammer, once, twice, wood splinters flying. Zinnia got up behind me, coughing blood, and I felt her fingers on my ankle pulling hard. I fell face first, my nose breaking against the threshold, stars exploding in my vision. The pain was everywhere, in my palms, my leg, my dislocated shoulder, my swollen face. I crawled over the threshold, screaming with what voice I had left. "Help! Call the police!" The hallway was a black tunnel. Closed doors on both sides, but at the end, a dim light under a door. The neighbor. Thane Kestrel, I learned later. A 68-year-old retiree who collected stamps and hated noise. Zinnia dragged me back by my feet, her nails digging into my flesh. "You're not leaving." The knife, the butcher knife, was in her hand again, raised high. I rolled, kicking her wrist, and the blade sank into the doorframe instead of my chest. I seized the moment, throwing myself into the hallway, my body crashing into the opposite wall. I pounded on the neighbor's door with my bloody fists. "Please, she's going to kill me!" Chaos erupted. Thane threw open the door, a skinny man in a threadbare robe with sleepy eyes that widened when he saw me, covered in blood, sobbing, with Zinnia roaring behind me like a demon. "Call 911. She's a killer," I stammered, collapsing against his bony chest. He backed away, phone in hand, as Zinnia tried to cross the threshold, but Thane was a Vietnam vet. He pulled a baseball bat from behind the door and swung it, shouting, "Back off, crazy woman. The police are coming." She stopped, panting, blood dripping from her shoulder and eyebrow, her face a mask of frustrated rage. For a second, we stared at each other. Me curled up on the neighbor's floor, shaking like a leaf, her framed in the doorway like a living portrait of madness. "This isn't over, Muse," she hissed, before retreating to the loft and slamming the door shut. I heard the bolt turn, the sound of furniture being dragged to block the entrance, sirens in the distance, approaching like distant salvation. Thane covered me with a rough blanket, murmuring, "Calm down, girl. It's over." But it wasn't over. My body was a map of cuts and bruises, the pain a constant pulse reminding me every second. The police burst in minutes later, SWAT with shields and rifles knocking down the loft door. They found her curled up in a corner, surrounded by canvases that they now saw as evidence. DNA stains, fibers from the missing women's clothes, diaries scribbled with detailed creative sessions, stabbings in the neck to release the flow, dismemberments with pruning saws to distribute the essence, bodies in black trash bags sold as ephemeral installations to morbid collectors. They took me to the hospital in an ambulance, red lights flashing in my swollen eyes. They stitched me up with 47 stitches, cheek, palms, calf, shoulder. Endless interrogations followed. Detectives with tired faces asking for details that still haunt me. Zinnia Larkspur, a false name, her real name was Briar Voss, alias of an artistic crime network, confessed to everything. 4 deaths, previous failed attempts, sales on the dark web of inspired works. Her accomplice, a guy named Aubrey something, escaped that night, but they caught her weeks later in a motel in Iowa. And me, I sleep with the lights on, jump at shadows on the walls, smell paint in my dreams, and wake up screaming. Every match on Tinder is a reminder. The slip that almost cost me everything. But I keep swiping because chaos is addictive, even when it bleeds. My name is Azalea Finch, and for 13 months now, I haven't been able to hear the sound of dry leaves without my whole body tensing up like a wire about to snap. I know I should start at the beginning, the real beginning, but my brain hasn't worked that way since that night. Memories come in fragments, in waves of panic that wake me up at 3 in the morning with my sheets soaked in sweat, and my throat burning as if I could still feel his fingers pressing down. But I'll try. Because my therapist says that telling the story, putting it in order, can help, and because part of me needs to get it out like poison from a wound. It all started with a swipe. How stupid that sounds, right? Your whole life can change with the movement of a finger on a glass screen. It was March. Portland was coming out of winter, those first days when the sun comes out and reminds you that not everything is perpetually gray. I was 31. Working as a graphic designer from my apartment, and had been single for 2 years after a relationship that had slowly crumbled like wet paper. My friends convinced me to download the app. Just to get out a little, Oceane said as we drank coffee in her kitchen. You don't have to marry anyone, just meet new people. So I did. I created a profile, posted photos where I looked good but not too dressed up, wrote something witty about my love of design and hiking, and I started swiping. Most of the profiles were forgettable. Men with photos of fish they had caught, selfies at the gym, bios that said no drama or just passing through. Some sent me generic messages. Few really interested me. Then he appeared. His profile said his name was Caspian Holt, 34 years old. The photos showed someone athletic, but not overly muscular, with dark brown hair that fell slightly over his forehead and eyes that looked gray-blue in the photos. In every picture he was outdoors, on top of a mountain with his arms open, in a kayak on a lake, camping by a campfire. His bio was simple. Life is better under the open sky. I'm looking for someone who appreciates the silence of nature as much as good conversation. Something about that resonated with me. I swiped right. It was a match. He wrote to me first, 20 minutes later. Hi, Azalea. Beautiful name, like the flower. Do you hike a lot? I saw you mention it. We started talking. At first, just on the app, then we exchanged numbers and moved on to texting. He told me he worked in logistics for an outdoor equipment company, that he had grown up in Montana but had moved to Portland 5 years ago. He asked me about my job, and he seemed genuinely interested when I explained the projects I was working on. It wasn't bombardment. It wasn't intense. It was natural, spaced out over several days, with conversations flowing easily. After a week, he suggested we meet up. I know this may sound very me, he wrote, but there's a park west of the city, Forest Ridge Trail. It has an easy hike with an incredible view at sunset. Would you like to go? I completely understand if you'd prefer something more public for a first date. I should have said yes, that I preferred something more public. I should have suggested a coffee shop, a restaurant, anywhere with people around. but I loved hiking. It was one of the few things that really made me feel at peace, and he had been so respectful in acknowledging that I might be uncomfortable. "Sounds good," I replied, "but I'll tell my friend where I'll be and share my location with her." "Of course. That's smart. Send me your address and I'll pick you up on Saturday at 5. Sunset is around 7, so we'll have time to climb at a leisurely pace." I gave him the address of the coffee shop near my apartment, not my real address. I was still a little cautious. Saturday came too quickly. I spent the afternoon nervous, changing 3 times. I finally decided on hiking leggings, a long-sleeve t-shirt, and a light jacket. I put water, my fully charged phone, and pepper spray in the side pocket of my backpack. I sent Ocean a message with all the information: his name, his photo, where we were going, when I expected to be back. She replied with, "Have fun, but stay alert. Call me when you get home." Caspian arrived in a dark green Toyota 4Runner. When he got out to greet me, I saw that he looked just like his photos, maybe a little taller than I had imagined, around 6 feet. He was wearing jeans, hiking boots, and a denim jacket. His smile was warm, revealing white, even teeth. "Azalea," he said, and there was something genuine in the way he said my name. "It's nice to finally meet you in person." "Likewise," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He opened the passenger door for me, an old-fashioned gesture that I found sweet. The interior of the car was clean and smelled of pine air freshener. In the back seat was camping gear, a large backpack, a rolled-up sleeping bag, ropes. "Are you going camping later?" I asked as I buckled my seatbelt. "Oh, that," she looked back. "No, it's from last week. I'm terrible at getting my stuff out of the car. I should clean it out." We laughed. He started driving. The conversation on the way was easy. He asked me about my week. I asked him about his. We talked about music, discovering we both had a soft spot for indie folk. He put on a playlist of Bon Iver and Lord Huron. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, gilding everything. I felt relaxed, safe, even. How wrong I was. The drive took 40 minutes. We got further and further from the city, the houses becoming less frequent, the trees denser. He took a detour down a dirt road that wound through tall pine trees. "It's not very crowded," he said. "That's why I like it. Most people go to the more popular parks." I nodded, though a little voice in my head began to whisper. Too isolated, too empty. I ignored it. We pulled into a small gravel parking lot. There was only one other car, an old Honda that looked like it had been there for days. A wooden sign marked the start of the trail, Forest Ridge Trail, 2.3 miles to the lookout. We got out of the car. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. Birds sang somewhere above us. It was beautiful, I have to admit. It was exactly the kind of place I would have gone to on my own. "Ready?" he asked, adjusting his own backpack on his back. "Ready." We started walking. The trail was well maintained at first, wide enough to walk side by side. Caspian pointed out things as we walked. Types of trees, animal tracks in the mud, a woodpecker pecking in the distance. He seemed to know a lot about nature, speaking with genuine enthusiasm. He asked me questions about my childhood, about my family. I told him about my younger brother, who lived in California, about my father, who had died when I was 22. He shared that he had lost his mother to cancer 5 years ago, that his father had remarried, and that he didn't talk much to his new family. "It's hard," he said, "when you feel like someone is trying to replace the person you lost." I understood. I really understood. We walked for almost an hour. The trail began to climb more steeply. My breathing became heavier. Caspian adjusted his pace to mine, never pushing me to go faster. "We're close," he said when we reached a fork in the trail. A sign indicated that the lookout was on the right, 0.4 miles away. But Caspian stopped, looking toward the trail on the left, which had no signage. "What's up?" I asked. "There's another place," he said, turning to me. "The official lookout point is nice, but there's a secret spot I discovered a few months ago. The view is much better. More private, too. Something in my stomach tightened. How far? 10-15 minutes max. It's worth it, I promise. I looked at the unmarked trail. It was narrower, less well-maintained. The shadows were denser there. I don't know, I said slowly. It's starting to get dark. I have a flashlight, he replied, pulling a tactical flashlight out of his backpack. And we'll get there before sunset. Trust me, Azalea, I won't disappoint you. There was something in his voice. I can't describe it exactly. It wasn't pressure, it wasn't aggression. But there was an expectation, as if he had already decided we were going and was just waiting for me to catch up. I should have said no. I should have insisted on going to the official lookout point or back to the car. But I didn't want to seem paranoid. I didn't want to ruin the date by being the scaredy cat. So I nodded. Okay, but only 15 minutes. His smile widened. Perfect. We took the left path. Immediately, everything changed. The trees were denser here, blocking much of the remaining sunlight. The path was barely visible, more a suggestion of a trail than anything actually maintained. Branches hung low, grazing my head and shoulders. Caspian walked ahead now. There was no room to walk side by side. I followed him, my boots stepping on the same dry leaves his had just crushed. The sound was different here, quieter. The birds didn't sing as much. There was only the crunch of leaves under our feet, the occasional snap of a branch. Are you sure this is the way? I asked after what felt like more than 15 minutes. Yes. It's just ahead, he replied without turning around. We kept walking. The sun was definitely going down now. Through the trees, the sky was tinged with orange and pink. But down here on the path, the shadows were lengthening and darkening. My instincts were screaming now. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. Turn back. Caspian, I said, stopping. I think we should go back. He stopped too. He turned slowly toward me, and his expression had changed. The warmth was gone. His eyes looked at me in a way that made me feel like prey. We're almost there, he said, and his voice was different too. Flatter. Just a little further. No, I said, trying to sound firm. I want to go back. Now. He took a step toward me. Don't you trust me, Azalea? It's just getting dark, and after everything we've talked about, after I opened up to you, and you can't trust me for 5 more minutes. There was something accusatory in his tone now, as if I were the unreasonable one. It's not that, I said, taking a step back. I just think we should. He took something out of his pocket. For a horrible second, I thought it was a gun, but it was a phone. An old one, not a smartphone. An old flip phone. I want to show you something, he said. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. What? He opened the phone. The small screen lit up with a pale blue glow in the growing darkness. He pressed a few buttons. Then I heard the sound. At first, I couldn't identify it. It was static, like from an old recording. Then, through the static, I heard a voice. A woman's voice. Please, the voice said, and there was such terror in it that I felt my stomach knot up. Please don't do this. I have a family. I have a son, please. The voice broke into sobs, and then there was another sound. A wet sound, like someone trying to breathe but unable to. A gurgling sound. In silence. Caspian pressed another button. Another voice. Another woman. Help. Someone help me, please. The audio cut out in what sounded like a struggle. Thuds. Something dragging. And then that horrible gurgling sound again, as if someone were choking on their own blood. I felt bile rise in my throat. My whole body froze. What is that? I whispered, though part of me already knew. Caspian hung up the phone. He looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It wasn't anger. It wasn't passion. It was satisfaction, as if he had revealed a great secret and was waiting for my reaction. It's them, he said simply. The others. The others, I repeated mechanically, my brain refusing to process what I was hearing. 6 so far, he continued, as if he were talking about the weather. all from dating apps, all hiking enthusiasts, all trusting. Terror hit me then, a tsunami that knocked the wind out of me. My legs wanted to run, but they felt like jelly. "I collect them," he said, caressing the phone as if it were something precious. "Their last words, their last sounds. It's the most honest part of a person, you know, when they know it's over. No more pretense, no more masks. Just pure terror." "You're crazy," the words came out before I could stop them. His expression darkened. "I'm not crazy. I'm awake. Most people live in denial about what we really are. Animals, predators, and prey. I just accept my nature." I began to slowly back away. He noticed and smiled. "There's nowhere to go, Azalea. We're miles from the parking lot. There's no signal here, and it's getting dark fast." "Someone knows where I am," I said, my voice shaking. "My friend. I gave her your name, your photo." "Caspian Holt?" He laughed, a humorless sound. "That's not my real name. The car is registered to a company. The photos are edited stock profiles. I'm careful, Azalea, very careful." My mind was racing. The pepper spray. It was in the side pocket of my backpack. If I could just reach it. "Why?" I asked, trying to buy time as my hand slowly moved toward my back. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can," he replied, taking a step toward me. "Because when you're good at something, it would be a waste not to do it. And I'm very good at this." He took another step. I took another step back. "The first one was an accident, actually," he continued, as if we were having a casual conversation. "A date that got aggressive. She started screaming, calling me names. My hands were on her throat before I knew it. And when I felt her pulse weaken under my fingers, it was revealing. My hand touched the zipper of my backpack pocket. The next ones were more intentional. I learned. I found my spots, my methods, and I discovered that I liked it better when they knew what was coming, when they could see, when they could beg me. I unzipped the pocket slowly, trying not to make a sound. The second one was called Poet. Weird name, right? She fought harder than the others. She scratched my face. He touched his cheek, as if remembering. But they all give up eventually. They all realize there's no escape. My fingers touched the pepper spray. The third, Saffron, was different. She prayed. Interesting how people get religious at the end. "Do you pray, Azalea?" I took it out of my pocket, hiding it at my side. "And now you," he said, his eyes shining with something sick. "The seventh. Lucky number." He moved fast, faster than I expected. His hand grabbed my wrist before I could raise the spray. "Nice try," he said, twisting my arm. I screamed in pain. The spray fell to the floor. He used his grip on my wrist to pull me toward him. His other arm wrapped around my neck, not squeezing yet, but with the threat there. "We can do this two ways," he whispered in my ear, his hot breath against my skin. "Quick and relatively painless, or slow and agonizing. You choose." Panic flooded me completely. I could feel the strength in his arms, the control he had over my body. He was stronger, bigger. He had the advantage in every way, but I wasn't going to give up, not without a fight. I dropped myself, going limp in his arms. He cursed, surprised, his grip loosening momentarily. I used that moment to twist around and drive my elbow into his ribs with all the strength I had. The air rushed out of him in a gasp. He let go. I ran. Not toward the path we had come from. That's what he would expect. I ran straight into the trees, into the dense darkness of the forest. Branches whipped my face, scratching my cheeks and forehead. My feet caught on roots and rocks. I almost fell twice, but kept moving. Behind me, I heard his voice. "Azalea." The voice was sing-songy now, playful. "You're just making this more fun." The sound of his footsteps was steady, rhythmic. The crunch of dry leaves under his boots. I wasn't running. I didn't need to run. I knew he couldn't get far. My lungs burned. My throat was dry. But I kept running. No idea where I was going, just away. It had to be away. The other three ran too. His voice came from somewhere behind me, unnervingly calm. Marceline made it almost a quarter of a mile. Impressive. But eventually she stumbled. They all stumble. My legs hit something. A rock, a log, I wasn't sure. I fell face first, my hands cushioning the fall against damp earth and rotten leaves. I rolled onto my back, trying to get up. Then I saw the light, his flashlight sweeping through the trees, searching for me. I lay completely still, pressing myself into the ground, praying the darkness would hide me. The beam of light passed close, so close I could see dust particles floating in its glow. It stopped. It scanned the area. I held my breath. The seconds stretched into hours, then the light moved in another direction. I heard his footsteps receding. I stayed there, not daring to move, my heart pounding against my ribcage so hard that I was sure he would hear it. I counted to 100 in my head, then another 100 silence. Very slowly, very carefully, I got to my knees. I looked around. Darkness. Trees. I had no idea where I was. I had to find the trail, or the parking lot, or something. I started crawling, keeping a low profile, moving as quietly as possible. Then I heard the sound. Music. No, not music. That horrible audio again. The voices of dead women, crying, begging. It was coming from everywhere, as if there were multiple speakers hidden in the woods. Do you like how they sound? His voice cut through the audio. I listen to them all the time. They help me sleep. They remind me of my best nights. The audio grew louder. A cacophony of terror. Voices overlapping, screams drowning in gurgles. My hands pressed against my ears, but I couldn't block it out. Drusilla was the loudest. His voice continued casually, like sports commentary on his work. She screamed until she couldn't scream anymore. Poet tried to negotiate. He offered me money. As if this were about money. I forced myself to keep moving. The audio was a distraction, trying to disorient me, to keep me paralyzed with fear. But it also meant I didn't know exactly where I was. He was using sound to hunt me down, to make me reveal my position. So I stayed silent, moving slowly, carefully through the darkness. The audio eventually stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. Azalea. His voice now sounded closer. You're being very smart. Smarter than the others. I'm impressed. I didn't respond. I kept moving. But think about it. You're lost in the woods. No phone signal. No light. No idea which direction safety is in. You can run all night, but eventually you'll tire, or you'll get hurt. And I can do this all night. He was right, and I knew it. But it didn't matter. I wasn't going to give up. My hands touched something solid, a large fallen tree. I crawled underneath it, pressing my body against the space between the trunk and the ground. And I waited. Time lost all meaning. It could have been minutes or hours. I listened to every sound, the wind in the leaves, small animals moving in the undergrowth, and his footsteps coming and going, searching. Then the beam of his flashlight illuminated my hiding place. There you are. I lunged to the other side of the trunk just as his hand reached for me. My fingers grabbed dirt and rocks, throwing them into his face. He cursed, wiping his eyes. I ran again, but this time he ran too. I could hear him behind me, closer now, his breathing heavy but steady. My foot caught on something and I stumbled, falling forward. My head hit something hard. Stars exploded in my vision. Before I could recover, he was on top of me. His weight pinned me to the ground. His hands went for my throat. Enough, he growled. This isn't fun anymore. His fingers tightened. I could feel my windpipe compressing under the pressure. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Panic. Pure, animal panic. My hands clawed at his face, searching for his eyes. He turned his head, avoiding them. My vision began to darken at the edges. Bright spots danced before my eyes. Not like this. I couldn't end like this. My hand desperately searched for something. Anything. It touched a rock, about the size of my fist. With the last of my strength, I lifted it. and smashed it into his temple. The impact sounded like a wet crack. His grip loosened. His eyes glazed over. I hit him again. And again. He rolled away from me, clutching his head. Blood darkening his hair. I gasped for air, my throat burning, each breath like glass in my lungs. He was still moving, trying to get up. I couldn't let him get up. I found another rock, bigger. I lifted it with both hands. "Wait," he said, his voice thick. "Wait, we can—" I smashed it into his face. He screamed, a horrible bubbling sound. But he was alive. He was still moving. My body acted without thinking. I found a thick branch. I held it like a bat. But before I could use it, he lunged at me in one last desperate effort. His hands grabbed my ankles, pulling me to the ground. We fell together, rolling over leaves and mud, each trying to gain the upper hand. His fingers found my throat again. He squeezed with renewed force, fueled by desperation and rage. My world narrowed to that sensation. His fingers, like iron bars, blocking my air, my vision speckled with black. My body began to convulse, animal instinct fighting for oxygen that wasn't coming. Somewhere in the distance, I heard my own voice in my head. This is it. This is where it ends. But then my hand touched something. Something cold and metallic. His flashlight. It had fallen during the struggle. With the last fragment of consciousness I had left, I grabbed the flashlight and swung it at his head with all the strength my dying body could muster. The impact echoed. His hands opened. Air flooded my lungs in a painful, desperate inhalation. I coughed, spat, each breath pure agony. He was on the ground next to me, motionless. Dead? I didn't know. I didn't care. I crawled away from him, each movement torture. My throat was on fire. My head throbbed. Blood. Mine. His. Perhaps both. Covered my hands and clothes. I had to move. I had to find help. Using a tree for support, I stood up. The world tilted dangerously, but I stayed upright. I grabbed his flashlight from the ground. It still worked, though the lens was cracked. I chose a direction, any direction, and started walking. I don't know how long I walked. My sense of time had completely broken down. There was only one step, then another, then another. Tears streamed down my face. Silent sobs shook my body, but I kept moving. Then through the trees, I saw something. Artificial light. At first I thought I was hallucinating, but no. There it was. Headlights, car lights, the parking lot. I found reserves of energy I didn't know I had. I ran toward those lights, stumbling over roots and rocks but not falling. I emerged from the woods into the parking lot. Caspian's 4Runner was still there, but there was another car too. A Subaru with hiking stickers, and next to the Subaru, a man in athletic clothes stretching. "Help!" My voice came out like a broken quack. "Please!" He turned, and his expression went from surprise to horror when he saw me. "My God!" He ran toward me. "What happened?" "There's a man," I managed to say. "In the woods. He tried to kill me. Please call the police." He was already pulling out his phone. He dialed 911 as he guided me to sit on the hood of his car. "Are you hurt? You're bleeding." I nodded, unable to form words now that the adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by shock. "Police and ambulance on the way to Forest Ridge Trail," I heard the man say. "I have a woman here. She says someone tried to kill her. She's injured. Yes, she's conscious, but in shock." The world began to blur at the edges. The man was still talking, but his voice sounded underwater. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the sound of sirens in the distance getting closer. I woke up in the hospital. Bright fluorescent lights, beeping machines, the smell of disinfectant. Ocean was standing next to my bed, holding my hand. Her eyes were red from crying. "Thank God," she whispered when she saw me open my eyes. "Thank God." I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't cooperate. Only a raspy sound came out. A nurse appeared. "Don't try to talk yet, honey. Your windpipe is badly injured. The doctor will be here soon." The next few hours were a blur. Doctors examining me. Cops asking questions that I answered by writing in a notebook because speaking was impossible. More tests. More questions. I learned that the jogger who found me was named Lysander Pruitt. He had arrived at the parking lot just after sunset for a nightly walk he took regularly. If he had arrived 10 minutes later, the police found Caspian, or whatever his real name was, an hour later. He was unconscious, with serious head injuries, but alive. They sent teams to search the woods. They found the trail where it all began. They found the old phone with the recordings. And in the days that followed, they began to dig. They found 6 bodies, 6 women, buried in shallow graves along that unmarked trail. Poet Ashford, Saffron Cole, Marceline James, Imogen Soto, Drusilla Yang, Kezia Oaks, all had been strangled. All had met their killer on dating apps. All had trusted the wrong man. His real name was Theron Calix Moreau, 37 years old. No criminal record. He did work in logistics, but for a completely different company than the one he had mentioned. He had used at least 12 different identities on various dating apps over the past 3 years. He was methodical, careful. He had studied every aspect of how not to get caught. Except he hadn't counted on me fighting so hard. On me breaking his skull. He was in a coma for 2 weeks. When he woke up, he had permanent brain damage, memory problems, cognitive difficulties, but enough function to stand trial. The trial lasted 3 months. I testified. The families of the other 6 women were there every day. He was found guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and multiple other charges. He was given 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The detective who led the case, a man named Dashiell Morse, told me there were probably more victims. Victims from before he started recording, victims in other states before he moved to Portland. They could be searching for years. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. My windpipe healed eventually, though my voice was never the same. It became rougher, with a broken quality that is always there. The physical wounds healed. The mental ones, well, I can't be in forests. I can't walk trails. I can't even be in urban parks without my heart starting to race. I deleted all my dating apps. I blocked my social media profile. I moved to a different apartment in a building with 24-hour security. For months, every sound in the night woke me up. Every man I saw on the street could be him. My brain knew he was in prison, but my body didn't believe it. The nightmares were the worst, not just of that night, but of all the other nights I never lived. I saw myself buried in the woods, my voice on that phone, screaming for no one. Therapy helped, slowly, gradually. But there are things that never completely go away. The sound of dry leaves crunching, the smell of pine trees, the darkness of the woods at dusk, and recordings, any kind of old static-filled audio. They take me back there, to that trail, to their hands on my throat, to those voices of dead women pleading for lives that were already lost. I survived when they didn't. I don't know why. Luck, timing, the night jogger, my own desperate ferocity. But I survived, and now every day is a day they didn't get. Poet, Saffron, Marceline, Imogen, Drusilla, Keziah. I carry their names with me. Tattooed on my left wrist, where their families can see them when we meet on the anniversary dates. Because someone has to remember. Someone has to bear witness that they existed. That they were more than just victims of a monster. They were daughters, sisters, friends, nature lovers who just wanted to experience the beauty of the world. And instead they encountered something ugly and cruel. My name is Vesper Malone, and for the past 11 months, I haven't been able to look at lit candles without my stomach turning. I know I should start by explaining who I was before that night, but the truth is, that version of me feels like a stranger. A naive person who thought she knew how to take care of herself, who thought she could read people. I was 32 years old. I lived in Austin, Texas. I worked as a digital marketing consultant, which meant long hours in front of the computer and very little social life. My last 3 relationships had ended due to mutual boredom or basic incompatibility. So when my friends convinced me to go back to dating apps, I did so with a certain cynicism. I wasn't expecting to find true love. I just wanted something. Connection, fun, a reason to get dressed up and leave my apartment. I downloaded the app on a Tuesday night after 2 glasses of wine. I spent an hour swiping, left, 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 occasional right. Then Indigo's profile appeared. 30 years old. Short black hair with one side shaved. Dark eyes lined with kohl. Visible tattoos on her arms and neck. In her photos, she looked confident, sensual, with the energy of someone who knows exactly who she is. Her bio read, artist, free spirit, open to unconventional connections. If you're curious and adventurous, let's talk. My best friend and I share everything. The emoji at the end was suggestive but not explicit, and something about that bio intrigued me. I swiped right. Instant match. Hi, beautiful, she wrote 3 minutes later. I love the energy in your photos. Have you ever explored your wild side? I should have seen the warning signs right there. The immediate approach, the loaded question. I was bored, a little drunk, and, I'll be honest, flattered. Depends on what you consider wild, I replied, trying to sound mysterious. The conversation flowed from there. Indigo was charming, flirtatious, but not overly aggressive. She told me she was a painter, that she had grown up in New Mexico, that she had had a spiritual and sexual awakening at 28 that changed her perspective on relationships. My best friend Calix and I have a special connection, she eventually wrote. We explore together. We share experiences. It's not for everyone, but when you find someone with the right energy. Are you suggesting a threesome? I wrote, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Only if you're interested. No pressure. But I saw your photos and felt something. Calix saw them too and agreed. There's a vibe. I had never done anything like this before. In my 32 years, I had been fairly conventional sexually. Monogamous relationships. Nothing particularly adventurous. But something in me, the wine, the loneliness, the boredom, said, why not? I might be interested, I replied, but I'd need to meet them first, maybe over coffee. Of course, although there was a pause. Calix is very shy in public. She gets nervous around crowds. How about we meet somewhere more private? There's a discreet motel on the east side. Nothing seedy, just private. We can chat, see if there's chemistry. No strings attached. That should have been the second red flag. A motel for a first meeting. But Indigo explained it in a way that sounded reasonable. Privacy for an intimate conversation about sexual desires. And part of me, the part that was tired of being predictable, wanted to say yes. Okay, I finally wrote. When? This Saturday. I can send you the address. We spent the next few days exchanging messages. Indigo sent me photos of her and Calix together. 2 attractive women, hugging, smiling at the camera. Calix was blonde, softer in appearance than Indigo, with freckles and light green eyes. She looked sweet, almost innocent. The photos became more suggestive. Nothing explicit, but loaded with intention. I found myself anticipating Saturday with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. I told my friend Magnolia what I was planning to do. She frowned. A motel. Vesper. That sounds weird. It's just for privacy, I defended. I'll share my location with you. You can track me. I don't know. Something feels off. You're being overprotective. I'm being careful. Promise me you'll keep your phone on and text me every hour. I promise. Saturday came too quickly. I spent the afternoon alternating between excitement and panic. I changed 4 times before settling on skinny jeans, a black blouse that showed a little cleavage, and my favorite leather jacket. I wore more makeup than usual. I wanted to look good, confident. At 8 o'clock that night, I drove to the address Indigo had sent me. It was in a part of Austin I didn't know well, more industrial, with warehouses and closed businesses. The motel was called Starlight Inn. The neon sign was flickering, the S was out, so it read Tarlight Inn. The paint was peeling. There were only 3 cars in the parking lot. My stomach tightened. This didn't look like I had imagined. I parked and checked my phone. A message from Indigo. Room 12. The door is open, go straight in. I texted Magnolia. I'm here. Everything's fine. I'll text you in an hour. I got out of the car. The night air was warm, heavy with humidity. I could hear the traffic from the nearby highway. A constant hum. Room 12 was at the end of the 2nd floor. I climbed the outside stairs, my boots echoing on the metal. The door was ajar, just as Indigo had said. I knocked softly. Hello? Come in, sweetie. Indigo's voice, husky and welcoming. I pushed the door open. The room was small. A king-size bed, a nightstand, an old TV, a bathroom visible through an open door. The curtains were drawn. And there were candles, dozens of them, on every available surface, filling the space with flickering light and a scent of vanilla that was almost overwhelming. Indigo was reclining on the bed, propped up with pillows. She wore a short black dress that showed off her tattooed legs. She smiled when she saw me. Vesper. Finally. Calix was sitting in the only chair, by the window. She wore a white sundress, her blonde hair loose over her shoulders. She smiled shyly at me. Hello, she said softly. Hello, I replied, suddenly feeling very out of place. This place is intimate. We wanted to make sure we had privacy, Indigo said, patting the bed next to her. Come, sit down, relax. I sat on the edge of the bed, setting my bag nearby. My eyes adjusted to the candlelight, noticing more details. The stained carpet, the peeling wallpaper, the smell of cheap disinfectant beneath the vanilla. Would you like something to drink? Calix got up and went to a small cooler in the corner. We brought vodka and cranberry juice. Sure, I said, even though my instincts told me to keep a clear head. Calix poured 3 glasses. I watched him do it, but his hands moved quickly and the candlelight made it hard to see clearly. He handed me a glass. The liquid was dark pink, almost red. To new experiences, Indigo toasted, raising her glass. We clinked glasses. I drank. The taste was strange, sweet from the juice, but with a lingering bitterness underneath. I grimaced. Cheap vodka, Indigo laughed. Sorry about that. Next time we'll bring something better. I drank more, trying to get used to the taste. Calix sat back down in his chair. Indigo moved closer to me on the bed, his hand finding my knee. So, he said, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. Tell us about yourself, about what you want. I started talking, telling them about my job, my life, trying to steer the conversation toward something natural. But my tongue felt clumsy. The words didn't come out right. Drink more, Calix encouraged. It'll help you relax. I obeyed, without thinking. The glass was empty before I knew it. Let me make you another. Calix took my glass. No, I think I'm okay, I tried to say, but my voice sounded distant. The room began to tilt slightly. A cold dizziness crept down my spine. Vesper, are you okay? Indigo's voice sounded concerned, but when I tried to focus on her, her face blurred. I feel strange, I managed to say. It's just the drink, Calix said, now closer. And probably nerves. Relax. Breathe. But I couldn't relax. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I tried to stand up, but my legs wouldn't respond properly. I fell back onto the bed. It's working fast, I heard Calix say. Yes, I gave her a full dose. I didn't want to take any chances. Their voices sounded different now. Colder. More clinical. My mind screamed alarm, but my body wouldn't obey. I tried to reach for my bag, my phone, but my arms moved as if through molasses. Shh, Indigo stroked my hair. Just let yourself go. It's part of the game. What did you give me? The words came out slurred. Just something to help you relax, Calix said in that soft voice. so we can play properly." My vision blurred at the edges. The room spun. The candles cast shadows that danced on the walls like living creatures. Then Indigo got up from the bed and went to the closet. She opened it, and the real horror began. In the closet, perfectly organized, were knives, at least a dozen of them, different sizes hanging from hooks. The blades reflected the candlelight, glinting like teeth. But that wasn't the worst of it. Stuck to the inside of the closet door were photographs, Polaroids, 4 of them. Even through my drugged vision, I could see what they showed. Women, 4 different women, in this very room, on this very bed. Their throats. No, it couldn't be real. "Ah, you saw them," Indigo said, his voice now completely devoid of its previous warmth. "We wanted to wait a little longer, but I guess it's okay. And you can't do much anyway." I tried to scream, but only a weak moan came out. Calyx knelt beside the bed, her face close to mine. She didn't look sweet anymore. There was something cold in her green eyes, something dead. The others were scared at first too, she said. But eventually they calmed down. The drug helps with that. "Why?" I managed to whisper. "Why?" Indigo laughed, a humorless sound. "Because we can. Because we like it. Because there's something beautiful about the moment when life slips away." "Balance," Calyx added. "Yin and yang, life and death. We are the mediators." They were completely insane, and I was trapped, drugged, helpless. Indigo selected a knife from the cabinet. It was medium-sized, the blade about 6 inches long. She examined it in the candlelight like an artist evaluating a paintbrush. "This one should work," she decided. My body finally reacted. The adrenaline cut through the drug enough that I could move my arms. I tried to roll off the bed, but Calyx pushed me back, her strength surprising for someone so small. No, she said, as if scolding a child. "You have to stay still. Fighting only makes it more painful." She pinned my shoulders to the mattress. She was stronger than she looked, or I was weaker than I thought. Indigo approached with the knife. The blade caught and reflected the candlelight as it moved. "The first 2 fought hard," she commented casually. "We had to be careless, but we learned. The last 2 were more artistic." She sat on the bed next to me. The knife descended toward my throat. Pure terror flooded me, the kind of primal fear that transcends rational thought. Every survival instinct in my body kicked in. "Wait," I gasped. "Please, I can give you money. Whatever you want." "We don't want money," Calyx said, his voice still that sickly smooth. "We want the experience, the connection. Do you know how intimate it is to hold someone as their life slips away? It's almost sexual." "Better than sexual," Indigo corrected. He pressed the flat side of the blade against my cheek. The metal was cold. "It's transcendent." Tears rolled down my temples into my hair. "Please." "Shh, don't beg." The others begged, and it didn't help. It only prolonged things. The blade moved from my cheek to my throat. I felt the edge, not cutting yet, just resting there. A threat, a promise. My mind raced frantically. I had to do something, anything. "Your phone," Calyx said suddenly. "Where is it?" My purse. It was on the floor next to the bed. Calyx reached for it and emptied it. My wallet, keys, makeup, everything spilled out. He found my phone. "Passcode," he demanded. I shook my head, a tiny movement so as not to press any harder against the blade. "Fine," he shrugged. "Doesn't matter. By the time anyone comes looking for you, you'll be where the others are." "The dump on 5th?" Indigo asked. "Too risky. I think the construction site on Manor Road. I heard they're laying the foundation on Monday." They talked about disposing of my body as if they were discussing dinner plans. The blade pressed harder against my throat. Not hard enough to cut, but I could feel its pressure, the line where skin met metal. "Last chance for final words," Indigo said. "Some have messages for their families. You." I couldn't speak. Fear had closed my throat more effectively than any hand. "Silent then," Indigo sounded disappointed. "Fine. Calix, are you ready to record? Calix pulled out an old phone, similar to the one Thaddeus had used in my previous story. Ready. Wait, Indigo said. Let me position her first. She moved my head, tilting it back to expose more of my throat. The movement caused the knife to graze my skin. I felt a prick, wet and warm. Blood. Not much. Just a superficial cut. But enough to prove this was real. My body convulsed. The drugs made me slow but not completely paralyzed. I tried to wriggle to shake Calix off my shoulders. She's fighting, Calix observed, pressing harder. Good, Indigo smiled. Makes the recording more interesting. The hand with the knife rose, preparing for the real blow, and in that moment of perfect clarity before the end, my hand found something on the mattress next to my hip. A candle, one of the dozens they had placed throughout the room. I grabbed it. The hot wax burned my palm. But I didn't care. With all the strength I had left, I threw it at Indigo's face. The molten wax and flame hit her eye. She screamed, dropping the knife, both hands flying to her face. Calix was distracted, turning toward her friend. I used that second. I pushed up with my legs, unbalancing Calix. She fell to the side. I rolled off the bed, hitting the floor hard. My head bounced off the rough carpet, but I was already moving, crawling toward the door. Bitch, Indigo kept screaming, half blind. Calix recovered quickly. She jumped on me, her hands grabbing my ankles. I kicked. My boot connected with something soft. I heard a crack and a scream. Her nose. I crawled toward the door. My fingers found the knob. I turned it. Locked. It was locked from the outside. There's no way out. Calix's voice was nasal now, blood dripping from her broken nose. We've got you. He stood up, swaying. He picked up the knife Indigo had dropped. I was trapped between them and the door. My hand groped around desperately. It touched something. The nightstand. There was a lamp on top of it. I grabbed it by the base and ripped it from the wall. The plug came out with a spark. As Calix approached with the knife, I swung the lamp with both hands. It hit her wrist. The knife flew through the air, hitting the wall. Then I used the lamp as a bat, smashing it against the window. The glass exploded outward in a shower of shards. The night air rushed in. Help! I screamed with all the strength my drugged lungs could muster. Help me! Help! Calix lunged at me, but I was already climbing toward the window frame, ignoring the glass cutting into my hands and arms. Someone! Please! Shut her up, Indigo yelled, still holding a hand over his burned eye. But it was too late. I heard a door open downstairs. Footsteps on the metal stairs. What the hell is going on here? An older male voice. The receptionist, probably. Calix and Indigo exchanged a glance. Shit, Indigo hissed. We have to go. What about her? We've already lost her. Move. They grabbed something, their bags probably, and ran for the door. They opened it and ran out, passing the confused receptionist on the stairs. He saw me at the window, covered in blood, shaking. Good Lord, he ran up. Miss, are you hurt? Call the police, I managed to say, before my legs finally gave way. I slid to the floor, my back against the wall beneath the broken window. The receptionist, his name tag said Morrow, already had his phone out dialing 911. I lay there, listening to his distant voice reporting the incident, while I looked at the room that had almost become my grave. The candles were still burning. The knife was on the floor. The closet was still open, displaying his collection of leaves and photographs of death. And I was alive. The sirens arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics, police, detectives, the room filled with people, voices, questions. They took me by ambulance to the hospital. I had cuts on my hands and arms from the glass, a superficial cut on my throat from the knife, and enough Rohypnol in my system to knock out a larger man. You were lucky, said the emergency room doctor. One more dose, and you would have been completely incapacitated. Lucky. That word sounded obscene. The police took my statement at the hospital. I told them everything. The app, the messages, the motel, the drugs, the knives, the photographs. "We need to see those photos," said the detective, a man named Quillon Hayes. They sent a forensic team to the room. They found the Polaroids still stuck to the closet, 4 different women. The detectives began the work of identifying them. They also found DNA all over the room: hair, fluids, fingerprints. Calix and Indigo had been careless, too confident that there would be no witnesses. The names on the app were fake, of course. The photos edited, but the police had other means. The motel's security cameras had captured their vehicle, a silver Jeep Cherokee. The plates were stolen, but it was something. Magnolia arrived at the hospital at midnight. She hugged me and cried. "You weren't answering your messages," she sobbed. "I was about to come looking for you." "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice still hoarse. "I'm sorry." I spent 2 nights in the hospital. The media picked up the story quickly. Female duo wanted in connection with multiple murders. The news showed composite sketches based on my description. The 4 women in the Polaroids were identified. Larkin Frost, 26, reported missing 6 months ago. Last seen going on a date. Bellamy Rivers, 29, missing 4 months ago. She had also met someone on an app. Sonnet Price, 31, missing 2 months ago. Same story. Haven Keller, 27, missing just 3 weeks ago. All had been found in dumpsters or construction sites around Austin, all with their throats slit. The police had been investigating, but with no clear connection between the victims, the case had gone cold. Now they had the connection, the dating apps, the motel, and 2 women working together. A week after the attack, the police had a breakthrough. The Jeep was found abandoned in San Antonio. Inside was more evidence: blood-stained clothing, an old phone with audio files. The files were exactly what Indigo had described: the victims' last words, their pleas, the sounds of their deaths. They recorded everything, like trophies, but Calix and Indigo themselves remained ghosts. Database searches with the descriptions yielded no matches. Their fingerprints weren't in the system. It was as if they had appeared out of nowhere just to kill. Detective Hayes visited regularly to keep me updated. A month after the attack, he sat in my living room with a grim face. "We believe they've left Texas," he said. "We've alerted police in neighboring states, but without real identities." "Are they looking for new victims?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "It's possible. People like that, they don't stop." He gave me a card with his direct number. "If you remember any details, anything that might help, call me." But I had already told them everything, every word exchanged, every detail of the room, every second of that night. There was nothing more to give. Months passed. I deleted all the dating apps. I changed my number. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of town. Therapy became part of my weekly routine. PTSD, I was diagnosed. Nightmares, panic attacks, constant fear. I couldn't be in rooms with candles. The smell of vanilla made me vomit. I would see women with short, dark hair or blondes with green eyes, and my heart would race. Magnolia stayed with me most nights. I was afraid to be alone, to close my eyes and see them again. 5 months after the attack, there was a possible sighting in Louisiana. 2 women matching the descriptions were seen in a bar, aggressively flirting with single women. Local police were alerted, but by the time they arrived, the women were gone. 7 months later, a woman in Oklahoma survived a similar attack. She was drugged, taken to a motel, but escaped before they could hurt her. Her descriptions of the attackers matched. They were still hunting, but they were more careful now, changing their patterns slightly, moving more frequently. Detective Hayes called me after the Oklahoma incident. "We want you to talk to the survivor, compare experiences. It might help the case." I spoke to her on the phone. Her name was Reverie. She was 28 years old. Her story was frighteningly similar to mine. "They said the same thing about balance," she told me, her voice trembling, "about life and death, as if it were something spiritual to them." "I know," I said. "Did you see the photos?" "No, I escaped before that, but I saw the knives. and the way they looked at me, she broke down, as if I were already dead, as if my death were inevitable and they were just waiting for the right moment. After that call, I sat on my balcony for hours, watching the lights of Austin twinkle in the night. 2 survivors, and 4 who weren't so lucky. Larkin, Bellamy, Sonnet, Haven. I kept thinking about them, how they must have felt in their last moments, if they knew what was coming, if they had time to feel fear, or if the drugs numbed them. I wondered about their families, their friends, the people who still mourned them, who wondered why, who searched for meaning in something meaningless. 11 months later, I'm still here, I'm still alive, but I'm also still trapped in that motel room. Every time I close my eyes, I see the candles, the closet, the Polaroids, the knife descending toward my throat. I feel the cold metal against my skin, the feeling of helplessness as the drugs immobilized me, the absolute terror of knowing I was going to die, and I hear their voices, Calyx with his sickening gentleness, Indigo with his casual cruelty. It's part of the game. Balance. Something beautiful in the moment when life slips away. They're still out there, somewhere, probably with new names, new profiles, looking for their next victim, and I'm here, living with the knowledge that I was seconds away from becoming another Polaroid in their collection. My phone vibrates with notifications I ignore. Magnolia asking if I'm okay. My therapist reminding me of our session tomorrow. Detective Hayes with another update that will probably lead to nothing. I look at my reflection in the balcony glass. The scar on my throat is barely visible now, a thin line that most people don't notice, but I feel it. All the time. A reminder that I survived when others didn't. A reminder that evil doesn't always come with clear warnings. Sometimes it comes with flirtatious smiles and promises of adventure. My name is Sparrow Callahan, and for the past 10 months, I haven't been able to look at jump ropes without my hands starting to shake. I should start at the beginning, with the person I was before that night. But it's hard to remember that version of myself. It feels like another life. Another woman who made stupid decisions with a confidence that now seems grotesque to me. I was 33 years old. I lived in Denver, Colorado. I worked in human resources for a technology company, which meant long days in front of screens and very little movement. I had gained 15 pounds in 2 years, and my energy was at rock bottom. You need to exercise, my friend Clementine would tell me every time we saw each other. It'll help with stress, with sleep, with everything. But gym memberships were expensive, and the idea of exercising alone in my apartment was depressing. I had tried some YouTube videos, but I never lasted more than a week. Dating wasn't going well either. My last relationship had ended a year ago, and since then I'd had a string of first dates that never led to second ones. Work consumed too much of my time. The social energy required to meet new people felt like an extra job. But on nights when I couldn't sleep, when the apartment felt too empty and the future too uncertain, I'd pull out my phone and scroll mindlessly. Social media, news, anything to fill the void. One night in March, after 3 hours of insomnia, I downloaded the app again. I had deleted it 6 months earlier after a particularly disastrous date. But there I was, installing it again, like an addict returning to their vice. I updated my profile. I posted recent photos, wrote something about looking for genuine connections, mentioned that I wanted to improve my health and fitness, and I started swiping. Most of the profiles were the same as always. Men with photos of fish, bathroom selfies, bios that said no drama, as if that were a personality trait. Then he appeared. His name was Dashiell Rourke, 35 years old. In his photos, he was at the gym, lifting weights, doing push-ups, running outdoors. He had the kind of body that comes from years of discipline, defined but not excessive muscles, broad shoulders, a six-pack visible even through his t-shirts. His hair was dark blonde, short on the sides, light blue eyes, angular jaw. In one photo, he was smiling while holding a protein shake. In another, he was doing a complicated yoga pose on top of a mountain. His bio read, "Certified personal trainer. I believe in the power of the mind and body. I'm looking for someone who wants to grow, improve, find their best self. Motivation is contagious. Ready for the challenge." Something about that resonated with me. It wasn't just about finding a partner. It was about improving yourself, about having goals. I swiped right. Instant match. "Hi, Sparrow," he wrote 2 minutes later. "Unique name. Like the bird, right? I like it. I saw you want to improve your fitness. That's a great first step. The recognition." "Hi, Dashel," I replied. "Yes, like the bird. And yes, I need to do something. I've been very sedentary lately. I completely understand. Work can consume your life if you let it. But your body is your temple. You know, if you don't take care of it, everything else falls apart." We talked for an hour that first night. He asked me questions about my routine, my diet, my energy levels. He wasn't flirtatious in the typical way. He was more analytical, professional. "I could definitely help you," he eventually wrote. "I have clients who started where you are and are now running marathons. It's all about consistency and having the right support." "Do you charge for training sessions?" I asked. "Normally, yes. But for someone special, I could make an exception, at least for the first few sessions, to see if there's chemistry." The word chemistry gave the conversation a different twist. It wasn't just about fitness anymore. We continued talking over the next few days. Good mornings and good nights. Photos of his healthy meals. Tips on how to improve my posture at work. Questions about my long-term goals, not just for fitness, but for life in general. He was attentive, motivating, and yes, attractive. After a week, he suggested we meet. "There's a cafe I like, outdoors, with a nice atmosphere. We could have a smoothie, talk in person. What do you think?" I agreed. The cafe was called Vitality and was in a trendy area of Denver, surrounded by yoga shops and vegan restaurants. I arrived 10 minutes before 11, our agreed time, and waited for him at a table under a parasol. Dashel arrived right on time. He was wearing black athletic shorts, a compression shirt that showed off every muscle in his torso, and expensive running shoes. He even walked like an athlete with the physical confidence of someone completely comfortable in his body. "Sparrow," he smiled, revealing perfectly white teeth. "Better than I expected." "Thanks," I said, suddenly feeling self-conscious about my own body. I had chosen leggings and a loose-fitting t-shirt, trying to look sporty but feeling unfit compared to him. He sat down across from me. Up close, his blue eyes were even more intense, almost unsettling in their clarity. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "tell me, what motivated you to want to change?" I told him about my job, my lack of energy, how I felt disconnected from my body. He listened with total attention, nodding at the right moments. "All of that can change," he said. "Your body wants to move, Sparrow. It's designed for it. You just need to remind it how." We ordered smoothies. Mine was green and tasted like grass, but I drank it because he assured me it was perfect for boosting energy. The conversation flowed. He told me about his career as a trainer, how he had helped dozens of people transform their lives. He touched my arm when he wanted to emphasize a point, casual gestures that sent little jolts of electricity through my skin. "You should come train with me," he eventually said. "A trial session, no commitment, just so you can see what your body can do." "Where do you train?" "I have a private gym, nothing fancy, but it has everything you need. And the best part is that there are no distractions. No people watching you, judging you, just you, me, and the work." Something in my stomach tightened. "Private gym?" "Yes. Many of my clients prefer private training, especially in the beginning when they're still building confidence. Public gyms can be intimidating." It made sense. I had avoided gyms partly for that reason, the fear of being judged by people who were in better shape. "How about tonight?" he suggested. "Around 7. A short session, 30 minutes. I'll show you some basic exercises, evaluate your form. You'll see it's not as hard as you think." "Tonight," I repeated. Part of me wanted to say it was too soon, that I needed to think about it. But another part, the part that was tired of putting things off, of living in my comfort zone, said, "Okay, where is it?" He gave me an address in the industrial part of town. "It's a little hidden," he admitted, "but that's why it's perfect. Total privacy." We spent another hour at the cafe. He made me laugh with stories of previous clients, their struggles and victories. He made me feel like I could do it too, that I just needed the right push. When we parted, he gave me a hug. It was quick but firm, his solid body against mine. "See you at 7, he said close to my ear. "Get ready to work." I spent the afternoon half excited, half nervous. I changed 3 times, finally settling on black workout leggings and a top that wasn't too revealing. I filled a water bottle. I stuffed a small towel into my bag. I sent Clementine a message. "I have a date training session with a guy from the app. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, worry." "Date training," she replied. "That sounds weird, Sparrow." "He's a personal trainer. He's going to show me some exercises." "Where?" "His private gym." "That sounds super weird. Send me the address." I sent it to her. I also shared my real-time location with her. At 6:30, I ordered an Uber. The driver was an older man who played country music and didn't talk much, which I appreciated. My nerves grew as we drove away from the city center into unfamiliar areas. The address took me to an industrial area near the train tracks. Warehouses, manufacturing buildings, wide streets with few cars. At 7 in the evening, most businesses were closed. The Uber stopped in front of a 3-story red brick building. Boarded up windows, peeling paint. A rusted sign that once said something but was now illegible. "Are you sure this is it?" the driver asked, eyeing the building suspiciously. I checked the address. It matched. "Yes, I think so." "Do you want me to wait?" I almost said yes, but I felt silly. Dashiell had been completely professional. This was just training. "No, it's okay. Thanks." I got out of the car. The Uber drove away, leaving me alone on the empty street. The building looked more abandoned than it had from the car. There were no signs of life, no visible lights on. My phone vibrated. Message from Dashiell. "I'm at the back entrance. Walk around the building. You'll see the door." I walked along the sidewalk, my sneakers making soft sounds against the concrete. The sun was setting, tinging everything orange and purple, but here among these industrial buildings the shadows were already dense. I walked around the building. There was an alley at the back, darker, with a large dumpster against one wall, and there was Dashiell, leaning against a metal door wearing the same sports clothes from the morning. He smiled when he saw me. "Punctual. I like that." "This place looks abandoned," I said, unable to hide my distrust. "I know, right? That's the beauty of it. The owner lets me use the space for free because no one else wants it. But inside, it's perfectly fine. You'll see." He opened the door. Inside, it was dark. "The lights are out," he explained. "Watch your step on the stairs." Every instinct in my body screamed not to go in, but I was already here. I had already told Clementine where I was, and Dashiell had been so kind, so professional. I went in. The interior smelled of dampness and rusted metal. There was enough evening light coming in through cracks in the boarded-up windows to see a narrow hallway and stairs leading down. "This way." Dashiell walked ahead of me, turning on a flashlight on his phone. "The gym is in the basement. Better noise insulation." We went down the stairs. They were concrete, rough, with a cold metal railing. My footsteps echoed in the empty space. At the bottom was another door. Dashiell opened it. "Welcome to my temple," he said. He turned on the lights. Fluorescent tubes flickered before fully illuminating the space. It was a large basement with a low ceiling and support columns every few feet. And yes, there was gym equipment, a weight bench, free weights, barbells, mats, resistance bands hanging from hooks on the wall. But something was wrong. The equipment looked Overused, stained. There were dark marks on the weight bench, on the mats. The resistance bands were stretched out, some partially broken. And the smell. It wasn't just dampness. There was something else, something organic and rotten beneath the stale air. "It's basic," Daschle said, walking toward the center of the space. "But functional. No one interrupts us here. No one judges us. Just pure work." I stayed near the stairs, my hand still on the railing. "How many clients do you train here?" "Enough," he replied vaguely. "Some are more dedicated than others. Some." He laughed, a strange sound that echoed in the basement. "Don't complete their training." My stomach clenched. What does that mean? It means people start with great intentions but don't have the discipline to follow through. Fitness requires commitment, Sparrow. Sacrifice. Not everyone is ready for that. He walked over to the wall and picked up a jump rope. He held it by the handles, letting the rope hang down. "Let's start with basic cardio," he said. "Jumping rope is great for getting your heart rate up." But the way he held the rope, the way he looked at it, there was something in his expression that chilled me. "Daschle," I said slowly, "I think I made a mistake. I don't feel well. I think I should go." His smile faded. "Go? You just got here." "I know, but..." I searched for an excuse. "I feel dizzy. Maybe the smoothie didn't agree with me." "Sit down then," he said, pointing to the weight bench. "Rest for a minute." "No, really, I think it's better if I go." I turned toward the stairs. "Sparrow." His voice changed, colder, firmer. "You can't leave yet. We haven't started your training." "Maybe another day," I said, climbing the first step. Then I heard rapid movement behind me. Before I could react, his hand grabbed my arm and pulled me back. I fell into him, his body solid as a wall. "You don't understand," he said, close to my ear. "Training isn't optional. Once you come here, you finish what you started." Terror hit me, real and sharp. "Let me go." "Not yet." His grip tightened. "First, I want to show you something." He dragged me to the back of the basement, to an area I hadn't been able to see clearly when we entered. There were more columns here, creating divided sections, and behind one of those columns, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Bodies. No, not whole bodies. Parts. Legs. Arms. All partially covered with stained plastic tarps. My scream came out before I could stop it. Daschle's hand covered my mouth. "Shh. No one can hear you here. That's why I chose this place." I struggled, kicking, trying to bite him, but his grip was like steel. Years of training had made him incredibly strong. "For this season," he said casually, as if discussing sports scores. "All from the app. All wanted to improve their fitness. And all failed to complete their final workout." He dragged me back to the center of the basement, to that stained bench. "You could be different," he continued. "You could have what it takes. The mental strength, the endurance. We'll see." He threw me against the bench. I hit the hard padding, the air rushing out of my lungs. Before I could recover, he was on top of me, using his weight to keep me down. One hand pinned my wrists above my head, the other reached for something. The jump rope. "The neck is like any other muscle," he said, wrapping the rope around my throat. "It needs to be exercised, stretched to its limit." The plastic of the rope scraped my skin. He wasn't tightening it yet, just resting it there, a promise of what was to come. "The others begged," he said. "They cried. They promised things. But in the end, they all fail. Their bodies can't handle the stress. They give up." Tears ran down my temples into my hair. I couldn't speak with his hand still over my mouth and the rope around my throat. "But I want you to know," he continued, his blue eyes staring into mine with sick intensity, "that this isn't personal. You're just another challenge, another way to test myself, to see how far I can push the human body before it breaks." Then he squeezed. The rope dug into my throat. I can't adequately describe that feeling. It's as if your entire body is reduced to that point of pressure, every cell screaming for air that can't get in. My vision began to darken at the edges almost immediately. Spots of light danced in front of my eyes. Dashiell watched me with clinical fascination like a scientist observing an experiment. I pulled my hand out of his grip, I don't know how, pure adrenaline, and scratched his face. My nails left red gashes on his cheek. He cursed, loosening his grip momentarily. Air flooded my lungs in a desperate, painful gasp. I used that second to twist my body, throwing him off balance. I wasn't stronger than him, not by a long shot, but I had the desperation of someone fighting for their life. We fell off the bench together. My head hit the concrete floor with a crack that filled my skull with white pain. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I crawled away from him, looking for something, anything. My hand touched cold metal, a barbell, one of the small ones. I grabbed it with both hands just as he was getting up. "That's it," he said, smiling now, blood dripping from the scratches on his face. "Fight." It makes it more interesting. He lunged at me. I swung the bar with all my strength. It connected with his shoulder. The impact reverberated through my arms, causing me to drop the bar. He barely staggered. "You're going to have to do better than that." I backed up, bumping into the rack where the weights were stored. The metal disc clattered. A desperate idea. I grabbed one of the heaviest discs. It said 45 lbs, and lifted it above my head with effort. "Really?" he scoffed. "What are you going to do with that?" When he took another step toward me, I threw it, not at him, downward. The disc hit the concrete floor with a deafening crash. The impact caused other weights to become unbalanced, falling from the rack in a metallic cascade. The noise was tremendous, echoing off the closed basement walls. And while Dashiell was distracted by the chaos, I ran. I ran toward the stairs, tripping over scattered equipment, my lungs burning, my throat on fire. I took the steps two at a time, using the railing to propel myself. Behind me, I heard his heavy footsteps. He was coming after me. I reached the door at the top. I pushed. Locked. No. There was a lock on the other side. He had locked it after we went in. I pounded on the door frantically. "Help! Anyone, please!" "No one will hear you," Dashiell said, now halfway down the stairs. He walked slowly, unhurried. He knew I was trapped. "I told you, total privacy." My fingernails scratched at the metal of the door, trying to find a way to open it. They broke against the metal, leaving traces of blood. He reached the last step. He reached out his hand to me. "No more running. Sparrow, time to complete your training." His hand grabbed my ankle. I kicked. My other leg swung back, the heel of my sneaker connecting with his face. I heard the crack of bone, his nose. He screamed, letting go of me, bringing both hands to his face. I threw myself against the door again, hitting it with my shoulder, my whole body. The metal dented but didn't give. Then I heard something. Outside. Voices. What was that noise? It came from the old building. Is someone in there? "Help!" I screamed, with all the strength my damaged throat could muster. "I'm trapped. Please help me." "Did you hear that?" "Yes, someone's in there. Call the police." Dashiell cursed. Blood dripped from his broken nose. He looked at me with pure hatred. "Bitch," he hissed. "You ruined everything." He backed down the stairs, disappearing back into the basement. I heard movement downstairs. Was he hiding evidence, escaping through another exit? I didn't care. I just kept banging on the door, screaming, begging whoever was outside to get me out before he came back. "Hang in there," a male voice shouted. "We're going to get you out." I heard metal against metal, someone working on the lock. Seconds passed that felt like hours. Every noise from the basement made me jump, expecting Dashiell to reappear. Then the lock clicked open. The door opened. Light. Faces. 2 men in security uniforms looking at me with alarm. "Holy God, are you okay?" I didn't answer. I just bolted out that door, into the cool night air, away from the building as if it were on fire. I collapsed on the sidewalk, coughing, crying, shaking uncontrollably. One of the guards knelt beside me. "We've called the police. They're on their way. What happened in there? There are bodies, I managed between coughs. In the basement. And a man. He tried to kill me. The two guards exchanged glances. One spoke into his radio, while the other stayed with me. Is the man still in there? I don't know. There might be another way out. Sirens in the distance, rapidly approaching. 3 patrol cars arrived, then an ambulance. The officers entered the building with their guns drawn while the paramedics examined me. My throat was swollen, red, with clear marks from the rope. They had to take me to the hospital. We need your statement first, said a detective, a woman named Emberlyn Cross. Can you tell us what happened? I told them everything. The app, the coffee, the invitation to the private gym, the basement, the bodies, the attack. Their expressions grew more somber with each word. More officers arrived, forensic teams. The building became a crime scene. They took me to the hospital in an ambulance. During the ride, Detective Cross called me. We found what you described, she said, her voice tense. 4 victims, and a lot of evidence. Dashiell Rourke isn't his real name. His name is Theron Cade Mercer. He has a record in another state for assault, the man himself. What about him? He escaped. There was a back exit we didn't see, but we'll find him. We have his DNA, fingerprints, his real identity. He can't hide for long. But hearing that he was free out there filled me with terror again. I spent 3 days in the hospital. My windpipe was badly damaged. It hurt to talk. It hurt to swallow. It hurt to breathe. All 4 victims were identified. Meadow Ashton, 28, occupational therapist. Sable Kincaid, 32, architect. Tempest Breyer, 29, veterinarian. Ren Lockhart, 26, elementary school teacher. They had all met Dashiell on the app. They had all gone to his private gym for training sessions. And they had all been strangled with gym equipment. Jump ropes, resistance bands, machine cables. Theron had been doing this for at least a year, possibly longer. Detectives found journals in his actual apartment documenting each session. He described the strangulation process in clinical detail, measuring how long it took, which methods were most efficient. He saw it as a scientific experiment, Detective Cross explained to me. He was obsessed with the human body, with pushing it to its absolute limits. Fitness was just his facade. His real interest was darker. A week after the attack, Theron was captured in Nebraska. He had dyed his hair black and grown a beard, but a routine traffic stop revealed his identity. He was extradited back to Colorado. The trial was a media circus. The trainer killer, the news called him. My testimony was crucial, as I was the only survivor who could describe his modus operandi. I had to sit on the stand and look at him, while the prosecutor made me relive every moment of that night. Theron stared at me with those cold, emotionless blue eyes, as if I were a math problem he hadn't solved correctly. He was found guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and multiple other related charges. He was given 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. I left the courthouse that day and cried for 2 hours in Clementine's car. 10 months have passed. I haven't been back to a gym. The idea of being surrounded by exercise equipment gives me panic attacks. I deleted all the dating apps. I locked down my social media profile. I changed my number twice. Every time I get a notification, any notification, my heart races. Every message sound makes me check compulsively, hoping it's him somehow, even though I know he's in prison. Therapy helps. Slowly. But some things don't go away. The sound of metal clanging, ropes, the smell of dampness and rust, and the feeling of that jump rope around my throat, tightening, stealing my breath. My therapist says PTSD can improve over time, that eventually I'll be able to live without that constant fear. But for now, every day is a struggle. Clementine visits me regularly. She no longer mentions the gym. She no longer suggests that I need to exercise. Now she just sits with me in silence when the memories become too much. My mother came from Kansas to stay for a month after the attack. She made me meals, sat with me during the nightmares. "You survived," she would say. "That's what matters." But surviving feels like a perpetual state, not a single achievement. Every day I have to choose to survive again, to get up, to keep going, to not let him steal any more from me than he already has. Meadow, Sable, Tempest, Wren. Their names are tattooed on my wrist now. 4 women who just wanted to improve their lives, be healthier, stronger. And they found a monster who turned those desires into a death trap. Detective Cross calls me occasionally. "Just to see how you're doing," she says. But I know it's also because she carries this too. 4 women who died before they could stop him. "It's not your fault," I tell her every time. "I know," she replies. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. It's December now. 10 months since that night. The marks on my throat healed long ago. But when I look in the mirror, I can still see where the rope was. An invisible line that only I can see. My voice never fully returned to normal. There's a permanent hoarseness, a rasp that intensifies when I talk too much. Every time someone comments on it, I have to decide, do I tell them the truth or make up an excuse? I usually make up excuses. It's easier. My phone vibrates. A message from Clementine. "Are you ready for lunch? We're meeting at a cafe." Not the same one where I met Theron. I could never go back there. I put on a scarf even though it's hot. I've started wearing scarves all the time, covering my throat even when it's not necessary. It's a comfort, a protection. I look in the mirror one last time before leaving. The woman staring back at me is different from who I was 10 months ago. Thinner, paler, eyes that have seen things no one should see. But I'm here. I'm alive. And that has to be enough for now. I grab my bag, check that I have my pepper spray, my keys ready to be used as a weapon if necessary. I leave my apartment, locking 3 bolts behind me. I walk down the street, hyper-aware of every person around me. Every man who approaches makes my body tense. I arrive at the cafe. Clementine is already there, at a table by the window. She sees me and smiles, but there's sadness in her eyes. Everyone who knows me has that look now, pity mixed with relief that it wasn't them. I sit down across from her. "How are you?" she asks. "Here," I reply. It's the only honest thing I can say. We order. We talk about superficial things. Her job, a movie she saw, anything except what really matters. My phone vibrates again. This time it's an email notification. Without thinking, I check it. It's from the app, the dating app I deleted but apparently didn't cancel my account. "You have a new match." My stomach churns. My hand trembles as I hold the phone. "Sparrow." Clementine's voice sounds distant. "Are you okay?" I delete the notification. I delete the email. But I can feel sweat forming on my forehead, my breathing quickening. I need to go to the bathroom," I murmur, getting up so quickly that I almost knock over my chair. In the bathroom, I lock myself in a stall and breathe. I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 5, 6, 7, 8. Exhale, a technique my therapist taught me.